15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Maggie and Perloff on the Infinity Sports Network.
But he won 12 out of 14 in their opener, and he won that one and got a shot off. Centering pass, McDavid scores! Connor McDavid wins it for Canada! And Jordan Binnington has done it again inside the TD Garden.
ESPN. What a moment last night for hockey. Welcome to the show. If you're just waking up or just getting to it, Canada prevails 3-2 in overtime. The best player in the sport fittingly scored the game-winning goal. Canada's goalie, Jordan Binnington, was fantastic. Welcome to the program. Maggie Gray, usually Andrew Perloff, but EJ Stewart been filling in for Perloff all week and doing a fantastic job. And EJ, it's amazing because the whole country, our sports fans, even casual fans, felt like they were tuned in and dialed in. And we have a couple big takeaways, I think, from last night. Just first, the game. Connor McDavid is the best player in the National Hockey League. So for him to score this game-winning goal and for this exhibition, which ended up becoming so much more, filled with so much more meaning than I think we ever could have thought when it first started, I think just goes to show from the American point of view, we can get closer. Our rosters can get so much better. We can try to close the gap on Canada in terms of hockey as tight as we can. But they still have the generational talents.
Yeah.
The Gretzkys, Lemieux, Sidney Crosby, and now Connor McDavid. And in these moments, when we're talking about best on best and these highly charged, emotional games go to overtime, what do we always expect in sports? The best guy or gal is going to come through and win. And that's exactly what happened. And until the U.S. is able to produce that generational guy, like we can give you Michael Jordan, we can give you LeBron James, but we have not been able to give that generational hockey star. We have so many beyond talented hockey players, but not that dude.
No, and I feel like it was 2010 all over again, right? It was like Sidney Crosby breaking the hearts of Americans in the Olympics, and here you got the best player in the world, and in one sense, the new Sidney Crosby, but maybe even better, as crazy as that sounds, and Connor McDavid finishing this game. It's tough because I just feel like I told you I expected a blowout. I thought that the Canadian team, after getting a little bit embarrassed the last time out, would come out and really send a message, especially with maybe playing a hostile environment. Not as hostile as I thought it would be.
A lot of
honestly.
Canadian fans.
There were a lot of Canadian fans
made the trip. Good for them.
A lot of red in the audience. So shout out to them for showing up. I think it became a lot more of a neutral site game than maybe I anticipated. But yeah, it's just obvious, right? Like the Americans don't have that player. Like they've had guys come up. You know, I'm watching Jack Hughes out there play for the Devils. He was a big number one pick, potential, prodigy, and he's a young player. Maybe he becomes still a superstar, but
Austin Matthews had multiple shots.
Austin Matthews is
in
awesome
overtime.
Too. But there's levels to this, right? And at the end of the day, it feels like when the chips are on the table and everything's on the line, Canada's always going to be able to get to that next level. And I agree. And part of it is because they just always going to have the best guy on the ice. And
their goalie was phenomenal.
Oh my
and,
gosh.
We'll do later our top 5 moments from the Four Nations face-off final, which we'll give you a little bit later on in the show. But spoiler alert, one of them was right before overtime when Jordan Binnington, basically kind of huddles with John Cooper. And I don't know what Coop said, but it was something. And all of a sudden, this guy was a brick wall.
Yeah.
And he obviously had this great, performance when he was the goaltender for the St. Louis Blues. They ended up beating Boston in the Stanley Cup final, and he was great in that building. But it was like another level, man-possessed. I mean, he's flying, glove saves, glove save on Matthews, and then glove save right on the face-off. Like, it was just, it was spectacular.
Yeah, I think the country of Canada, you owe Jordan Binnington an apology, right? Because, they've been talking a lot about him, how he's been struggling in this tournament. I was like, we had the goalie advantage. It didn't look like it in this game. And the U.S. goalie also was really good in this game as well. But it was just, I mean, you're right. Like, it got to overtime, and it looked like it was inevitable that the U.S. were going to score because of those opportunities. And then when it didn't happen, you just were waiting for the end.
Yep.
You just knew it was inevitable that the U.S. missed their opportunity. And in the way they scored, too, was just so, they kind of a face-off, and they kind of just never got back to McDavid. McDavid's on the face-off, and the puck kind of gets kicked around, and everyone's running after the puck, and nobody finds him, and then he's wide open, and him from about 10 yards, like, that's like money. That is, just might as well chalk it up and call it a day.
He was way too open. But that's just a little of the X's and O's of what was going on the ice. Obviously, this thing meant so much more, and I think that one of the things we try to do in working in sports is try to put this a little bit in context of where we are as a society, where we are as sports fans right now. And I'm going to be honest, EJ, and I'm not trying to make this not about hockey. I'm going to try to give a huge compliment to hockey right now, which is they completely embarrassed the NBA with how good this tournament was. You got both sports, winter sports in this country, who really get going, at least for casual fans, once the Super Bowl is over and people start turning their attention. Obviously, both sports have their diehards. It's not about that. But in this country, you get a lot more eyeballs once the Super Bowl is over. And both teams were both sports, were on their breaks. And they both are basically trying to come up with gimmicks to entertain their fans. And what hockey did was take theirs to the moon. And the NBA basically was buried. And so I think that, guys like PK Subban, who's been all over ESPN lately, I think was pretty poignant when he was asked the difference between NBA stars and hockey stars, and he had a message to those NBA All-Stars.
I'm sick and tired of making athletes greats, all-time greats, that aren't the best examples. Stephen A., you want athletes to be educated on this and understand this. They got to understand the importance of showing up to the All-Star game and being on the court. Because you're making 100, 200, 300 million, you should be out there banged up. You should be. That's why we pay you, is to max out.
More from PK Subban on ESPN asking the NBA players, what are you playing for?
It's based on the pride, honor, playing for the guy next to you. I got a question for the NBA players. What the hell are you playing for? What are you playing for? It's not about the money. You make all the money.
Yeah. So I think poignant comments here from PK Subban and, a little, spike the football a little bit. That your sport is definitely winning this round for sure.
He may have a little bias there, Maggie.
A little bit. PK obviously was a longtime NHL player.
Awesome player.
A great player. But here's the thing. He's not wrong here. I do think that the NHL embarrassed the NBA here because one thing that PK said, and I want to give him credit for this, even though we're not going to play it for you. He said, listen, this hockey didn't do this. Hockey came up with the gimmick, okay?
Sure. Good
for them. They put on the tournament. The players are the ones that made it special. Same thing could apply to the NBA. All the NBA can do, people love to hate on Adam Silver. All he can do is just give you the platform. He just gives you the pedestal. They try to come up with something that would be kind of interesting.
Right.
The players, if they don't take it seriously, and I think, to be honest with the NBA All-Star Game, the broadcast kind of got in the way.
Yeah, there was a lot going on.
The actual basketball was not as terrible as everyone's making it out to be. But the players are the ones who have to be invested. Like, give kudos, I guess, to Gary Bettman, but, it was the guys on the ice that made this thing pop.
But then how come those guys that were on the ice last night weren't doing this last year during the All-Star game or the year before that?
Right.
Or the year before that? That's why I think that there is a little bit of, the self-grandizing, I think, of PK, as much as I appreciate his comments, I think is a little over the top only because of that. Because it's not like the NHL All-Stars, every All-Star game, we're going out there and playing like it was Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals. That's just not a fact. In fact, the only reason why we have this event is because they decided to change it up because of what wasn't working. Newsflash to a lot of people. The NBA had their moment like this. It happened over the summer. It happened in the Olympics.
Yep.
When you had Steph Curry giving night-night to France, when you had the comeback versus Serbia in the semifinals, it's all about pride. It's all about the national pride. It's all about putting countries together, and that is what really gets these fans, I think, and the players, takes it to another level. Now, if the NBA comes up with something similar to this, I think there's a chance you will see much more prideful play out there on the court. But I think to compare what happened in this particular tournament, which was nothing like anything the NBA was doing,
right,
and compare it to what the NBA just did on Sunday is like apples and oranges. The NBA had their chance to do this. Well, it was FIBA and the Olympics, but they did this already, and it worked.
Right.
Now it's the NBA's job to say, okay, how do we take what we saw from the NHL and bring that element to our game?
So I think where PK Subban and where hockey, though, gets the edge here, and you're right, we saw a great Olympic tournament, basketball, and that was something. But hockey can claim this all the time. They get the moral superiority, I think, over NBA because listen, guys have to be basically dead for them not to play.
Yeah.
They don't do this kind of like load management in the way that the NBA does with their stars. I mean, listen, we have different body types. It's a different sport. I get that. But the NHL can say, not only are we doing this for, like, air quotes, a meaningless exhibition, are we putting everything on the line? When we resume, we don't get Luka Doncic sitting out last night because it's a back-to-back.
Yeah.
We still give all that. So it goes from this awesome thing that, that the world got, or U.S. and Canada and Finland and Sweden, that we all got to enjoy. And by the way, you buy a ticket to another regular season game, and we're going to be giving max effort, and we're going to be playing even when we're hurt and even when we're injured. And the NBA players have no rebuttal there.
Well, the problem with that becomes the money aspect, right? I mean, you don't have these bloated salaries in the NHL the way you do in the NBA. And what I will say is we keep talking about the players.
Yeah.
This is an ownership issue in the NBA. This is not, I don't really think it's a player issue, because when we talk about load management in the NBA, those are decrees that are coming down from the front office and from coaching staffs and from ownership.
Right.
A lot of times, these players would prefer to play. They don't want to just take nights off. They don't want to not get out on the court. They prefer to play. It's the teams oftentimes that are holding them back. Why is that? Because these guys are seen as investments, Maggie. They're not looked at as just athletes that are just trying to win this random January game, in Sacramento. This is about an investment in a future beyond just this game. It's about how many years we can get this guy out in his prime. How many years can we maximize our window of winning a championship? Forget about this random game in February. We got to worry about 4 or 5 years from now.
Right.
Can we keep Wemby healthy or these guys healthy? The NHL players, because the salaries aren't bloated like that, they're just not seen as investments. So it really is a mindset that has nothing to do with the NBA players. It's everything to do with the decrees coming down from front offices.
I get it, and I know it's the sports science people and
Yes,
the
and
front
too.
office and all of that who are responsible in many ways for load management. But it becomes part of your culture too. And I do think that, a lot of these guys want to play, but I also think they get used to not playing.
Definitely.
Like, I don't think it's always the 76ers that are keeping Joel Embiid out. I do think that this is a guy, and I'm not just going to single out him specifically. I think Kawhi Leonard kept himself out for a long time. Even the guys we respect at the highest level, I think it becomes part of the culture. Like, think about it. They had to put in a max, like a minimum you had to play to be eligible for postseason awards. Like, they've had to keep these carrots out for these guys, and I don't think that's just for the front office. I do think after a while it just becomes part of the culture, and if you're Joel Embiid, you're not even thinking about possibly playing 70 games in a season, let alone 82.
But do you feel like ring culture exists in the NHL? Because I don't. I don't feel like there's this issue where it's like if you're
You said ring, not rink.
Sorry, ring.
Yeah.
Sorry, ring culture for those listening. Yes, there's plenty of ring culture. in hockey.
Culture.
No, is there ring culture in the NHL? Because I don't think there is. I feel like you could be a great player, and if you never win a championship, it's mostly fine. It's not some terrible blemish on your resume. There are plenty of great players who played in hockey who don't have championships or only have one, and it's fine. That's just not the reality in the NBA. You could have a player like Kevin Durant who has 2, it's one of the greatest players to ever play, and I feel like he can't ever get a break. And I'm usually the guy not giving it to him. I'm usually the guy criticizing as much as anybody, but that's a reality too. You can go out there and give maximum effort in a random game where your team is 5 games below 500. If there is no other thing of I'm going to have all these pressure and all these people getting after me because we're not winning. Like there's just it's an apples and oranges conversation that I think is convenient for hockey to be like, see, this is what we're able to do. We're able to give 110% max effort all the time, but it doesn't have any of the other nuances that NBA players and NBA teams deal with when it comes to the pressures of not just winning one championship, but being a consistent winner. It's just totally different.
Yeah, but I think that with that ring culture with the NBA guys, I think everyone's always looking around to see where's my better opportunity. Watch what's going to happen with Giannis this offseason. I mean, he's already laid the breadcrumbs on this, but guys like him, and to be fair, he already won one. But I think guys are always looking around to see where's my next opportunity rather than just at sometimes I think just focusing on what could be and what's your current situation as opposed to always trying to look for the escape hatch to go somewhere else and try to team up in I don't want to say shortcut, but trying to figure out like where do I navigate and get to my next spot. I kind of disagree with you. I think for the all-time great players in hockey, there still is a lot of pressure. Like you're telling me Connor McDavid wasn't feeling it losing in the Stanley Cup final last year.
What
like,
pressure? Who was coming down on Connor McDavid last year? They didn't win.
I think that they will though. It's like if he goes to say 2 or 3 Stanley Cup finals and doesn't win, you don't think that there's going to be any type of pressure on him?
Connor McDavid's been playing in the National Hockey League for 7 years at this point, 8 years. We look, the pressure Michael Jordan had when he wasn't winning those championships and how immense that was. The pressure LeBron James had and how immense it was that he wasn't winning championships. It wasn't even just beyond in the sport. It went beyond that. It was a pop culture reference in terms of those guys not being able to win because NHL players are not necessarily as high profile as NBA players. They don't deal with that kind of pressure. They don't deal with that kind of attention.
Well, I think in Canada they do. I mean, we're also looking at a little myopic from our own lens here. Like, you're telling me that the guys who play in Toronto aren't feeling it every time that they have another season that falls short? Like, they definitely do. I think McDavid does, maybe just not for the mass audience that we're doing a show for.
Right, but then bringing it back to the original point, that's where those decisions get made about what am I doing to maximize the best opportunity I have to win a championship. And it's the science, the common sense. Everything suggests that it does not make sense for 82 games to play like it's Game 7 of the finals. It just doesn't. If you want to keep everybody healthy, you want to keep everybody in a position where you can win, that is the best way to win. Until that mindset changes, nothing's going to change. But I don't know if that's a fault of the NBA players. That's just a reality of how the sports media world and how the sports the ownership and the front office of these NBA teams, that's the world that they've created. We are just living in it now.
We're talking about whether or not the NHL has embarrassed the NBA with how popular the Four Nations Cup face-off was over this break. And meanwhile, the NBA had an all-time just terrible all-star break, and everyone just thought it was awful. And now, like, can hockey capitalize on it? I guess the other part of that, though, is it's not like the NBA, first of all, has figured out how to keep guys healthy, because you can have fewer back-to-backs, less travel. You can do load management, all this stuff. Guys are still getting hurt. And sometimes it's like the flukish stuff. We'll talk about Wemby getting shut down for the season. But it's other things too. Like, and I think it's not that the NBA hasn't tried. I mean, I think they're doing a lot to try to entice these guys to play and play more. And there's only so much wiggle room you can do with the schedule, or else you're going to be playing basketball for like 9 months out of the year. Exactly. You know, it's already a long season. At least they've tried to loosen up the schedule to entice these guys to play, or entice the front offices to let them play, or whatever you think about load management. And it's just like it's not really working. 855-212-4227. And when I say working, I don't feel like guys are any healthier than they were. You know, I don't think that we're looking at the 80s and 90s and guys are, you know, they're healthier now. The other thing, PK Subban said, he goes, I don't want your 20-year career. I want your 10-year best. And I understand that's easy for us to say because you could be leaving literally hundreds of millions of dollars on the table. But there is something to that, which is, should athletes all expect, like we talk about this in football all the time with the quarterbacks, but should athletes really be expecting to play into their mid and late 30s and getting these massive contracts when, you know, what about just your 10-year peak? Well,
that's the problem, is there's too much money to be made to not be thinking about a 20-year career. That's why. Again, and we talk about money being a factor here. If you're an NBA player, I mean, now this guy is extremely broken down, has had massive injuries. But if you're Paul George, why wouldn't you low manage the last 2-3 years of your last contract so that you can get another $214 million contract? That's the contract he just signed with the Philadelphia 76ers. And he's 34 years old. He's well past the prime of his career. But that's the money that's out there. That money's just not out there in hockey. That's what I'm trying to say. Is that there's again, we gotta live in reality with some of these hockey fans and these hockey people that are pushing the NBA. And I love hockey in terms of like the effort they play with. What I saw last night was remarkable. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it is an apples and oranges conversation. To me, if I was the NBA, there needs to be more money incentives in the regular season. Like, I watched this thing, and I'm like, all right, well, there's no way you can get the NBA players to play this hard during the regular season. It's just not, or at least play as much, probably. Yeah. So how do you do this? I'm like, well, I think there should be incentives. If you win 50 games, each player gets another $5 million. You win 60 games, you win another whatever. I think there has to be things within the NBA season that people can go for beyond just setting yourself up to be a certain seed in the NBA playoffs, because even now that has become devalued. People would prefer to be more healthy than even have home court advantage.
Yeah, I don't know. The NBA salaries are so big right now. I think these guys, like, they blow their nose with this money. Like, I'm not saying they don't appreciate it, but $1 million here, $500,000 here, to people like us, life-changing. To them, what do they care? 855-212-4227. Okay, question for you. Did the NHL embarrass the NBA with their Four Nations Cup? And we'll talk more about this. And for our friends in Canada, we're on in Toronto, we're on in Vancouver, other places. Time to gloat a little bit. How are you guys feeling? And for the hockey fans in the United States, what did you take away from this? I'm proud of them. I know that sometimes it sounds like a loser's lament, like, hey, participation trophy, but I thought the United States really, they were incredible. And they're missing the generational talent. That's what our side is missing. We don't have Connor McDavid. We haven't procured our Sidney Crosby yet. Got close.
Yeah, I guess I'll bring the Generation X energy that Perloff normally brings. I am frustrated as a hockey fan. Okay. I'm tired of losing to Canada. And it feels like the U.S. has made so many strides in having an all-star lineup, essentially, and they still can't beat these guys.
Yep.
And I want to know from the American hockey fans, those who probably way more knowledgeable than me, what is it going to take? Like, how do you get over the hump? Is it as simple as developing the next Connor McDavid? Because all I heard in the broadcast last night was how awesome the U.S. development, hockey development project is. And a lot of these guys that were playing last night have been playing with each other since they were 14, 15 years old, which is awesome. And I think you would think is the model, but yet the result was still the same last night. So I want to know, how does this change? How do we get over the hump?
855-212-4227. Again, later on, we'll give you our top 5 moments from last night's Canada-USA final. Over-under on bar fights last night in Boston between Canadian fans and U.S. fans. Set the over-under around 15.
That sounds low to me.
Take the over. Again, 855-212-4227. So glad to have you on the show. You can watch us if you like, youtube.com/Infinity Sportsnet, twitch.tv/Infinity Sports Network. But let's get going. Did the NHL embarrass the NBA with how well the Four Nations face-off went?
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
A little bummed out.
One more time, Connor McDavid, best player in the world, and he showed it last night. Welcome to the show. It's the Maggie and Perloff show. Perloff on vacation. EJ Stewart is sliding in for Perloff all week long. We actually did hear from Perloff yesterday on the group chat, which we'll get into in a little bit, because, of course, it was show-related, and we now may have a little bit of a controversy that's now going to be brewing within the show.
The chat's going to explode.
They're going to hate this.
Yes.
I just I almost want to soften the blow somehow for the chat. YouTube.com/Infinity Sportsnet, Twitch.tv. But you guys are going to hate this. We're going to do everything in our power to make it right. But we're talking about the Four Nations face-off last night. Canada wins 3-2 in overtime. Connor McDavid with the game winner. We're asking it, did the NHL really embarrass the NBA over the last week or so with just how well this went for them? Their gimmick worked like gangbusters. The NBA's gimmick fell flat. Let's go to Philip, who's in Vancouver. Phil, congratulations, pal. How you feeling?
I'm still feeling nervous. I work graveyard shifts, so I can listen to you guys all night. In Canada, we're not gloating. It was a coin flip, and U.S. is caught up. So
okay,
I don't think anyone's up here gloating. It's,
so you're a little more relieved, maybe then.
Yes, relieved.
Wow. Okay. Well, Phil, enjoy it. We'll see what happens with the Olympics in 2026 when we have the NHL players are back in the Olympic tournament. They missed the last 2 cycles. And so maybe we'll all get on a plane and go to Milan and watch some hockey.
Going to Milan sounds amazing.
Yeah, pretty good. Steven is in Tennessee. Steve, what did you think? Did the NHL embarrass the NBA over the last week?
I think the NBA embarrasses itself. It doesn't need the NHL to do that for it. You're talking about a league where, comfort can be a tricky thing. And, you can live a very comfortable life being a role player for a bad team that doesn't win year after year after year in the NBA. I mean, where's the incentive that really separates the winners from the losers? I mean, maybe they need to tie more finances to the teams winning and making the playoffs.
You know what, Steven? I think you're on to something, and appreciate the phone call in that, you know, you're right. Like, you're the 12th man on the team, the worst team in the NBA.
Yeah.
You're making millions still, you know? And it's, you know, listen, I remember when I used to do a show with Bart Scott, and he was a former NFL player, and he said, the money only makes you more of what you already are. So I always try to keep that in mind. Like, if you are someone who works hard, you're going to work hard whether the money is there or not. If you're somebody who's lazy, you're going to be lazy no matter how much you're getting paid. So some of this, I think, is just the human nature of the athlete and a little bit of the culture around the sport. And I'm not necessarily blaming the NBA players for this, because you're right, EJ, as we mentioned in the first segment, there's a lot of reasons why load management happens. It's not just because of the players. But where hockey gets the superiority is they can say, we play hard all the time. And we play hurt all the time, and the NBA players don't do that.
Right, but I think when we talk about that culture, what happens when the culture itself has become so transactional because the money is so large that it doesn't it supersedes everything. It doesn't even matter if you're a role-playing guy who's playing on a bad team and you're playing hard or not. It's just the money is guaranteed. The money is going to be there. Like in the NFL, if there's so many, again, it's so interesting talking about this. Because when you think about the NFL, if you're on a bad team, you're an average player or whatever, not only do you have a monetary, incentive to play hard because your contract's probably not guaranteed, you're going to want to get paid. Number two, you can go out there and just get hurt. Yeah. Like someone may go and knock your block off. So you actually can't give 50% or 75% out there in an NFL game because you could actually injure yourself. So in the NBA, you don't really deal with that. You don't have guys coming in like, clotheslining you like with the bad boy Pistons or the 90s Knicks. Like that's not really happening in the NBA anymore. So that's why I agree with that point 100%. I kind of mentioned it in the first segment. Like, if I was the NBA, way more cash incentives during the regular season. Like, it can't just be you're just playing for seeding. It has to be more. And we'll talk about it later in the show. But when I looked at this tournament, I thought about how exciting the WBC was.
World Baseball Classic.
Yes.
Yep.
This is the future of sports in America. This adding an international element to your regular seasons is, I think, how all of these sports are going to survive. I think there's too much evidence, right? The WBC got massive numbers. This is getting massive numbers. We're going to see this final. I think this ratings final. I'm the guy on the show who cares nothing about TV ratings. This is the one I cannot wait to see because I think it's going to be huge. I think it's going to be really eye-opening. I think if you're the NBA, I think if you're hockey, I think if you're Major League Baseball, you got to find a way to make this a fixture of your regular season moving forward.
Yeah. 855-212-4227. I mean, we got the proof of concept. We've had it. And especially even on the basketball side, Team USA is not beating Angola by 50 anymore. These games
we lost to South Sudan.
They lost to South Sudan and made this big comeback against Serbia, down to the wire with France. It's the world has caught up. And for the American side on hockey, we've caught up now, which is really great to see. I'm so glad Chris Lopresti is here doing updates for us. Not that Bogish is not a big hockey fan, but CeeLo, good morning. You live and die hockey, and you are bummed out this morning.
I am. I think part of that is just the nature of staying up late and then working very early the next morning.
Oh, you're fried. Okay, got it.
No, I'm not. I wouldn't say fried. It was just a little more ornery. It's like, you want to come in. You make that commitment to staying up and watching the full game. You want to get the result that you were looking for.
I hear you.
Now, that's speaking as an American, but as a hockey fan, there's obviously positives to take out of last night and the tournament as a whole. So that's all well and good. But I mean, I still have scars from 2010 in the Olympics. I really do. So to see it play out almost exactly the same way last night was kind of tough to take, to be honest.
I understand. Get another crack at them at the Olympics.
Yeah.
But it's funny about the Olympics, which is obviously going to be next year, and NHL players are back, and that's really cool. I hope it carries over, but the Olympics is such a behemoth, for the casual fan. Now you got figure skating, and now you got whoever's going to emerge as the darlings of the Olympics. And also you can't write it out on paper that USA and Canada are going to face each other in a gold medal game
absolutely.
Or even before that. So there's a little more left to chance.
Yes, and the other aspect, the Olympic competition will play out over a longer period of time rather than essentially a week.
Yeah.
And this is like this was the prime spot in the sports calendar where things are quiet for this to work out. So it'll be a little different from that standpoint. But yeah, when you involve some of these other countries that we did not see in this particular tournament, Russia obviously being at the top of the list, when you look at the NHL and where these guys come from, it'll definitely be a much deeper pool and competition next February.
We're not a political show, but there would be it'd be shocking if the USA-Canada match is more politically charged than like a USA-Russia.
Yeah.
And it feels like that's where we may be headed, guys. CeeLo, what else is going on in the world?
Well, first of all, a riddle sponsored by Progressive Insurance. What do your home and auto have in common? Progressive protects them from both. It was an easy riddle. Learn more at progressive.com.
We need those.
Yes, we do. Always. Let's get you started in the morning, wake you up, get the energy flowing a little. You solve yourself a riddle. So it was Shades of 2010. And the Vancouver Winter Games, USA-Canada went to overtime. Pro hockey glory on the line. And once again, the Canadians did prevail.
And off the drop, McDavid went forward. And here we got a shot on. Carr sends it around. Marner waiting. Connor McDavid scores! Connor McDavid for Canada!
And that was Chris Cuthbert with the call on Sportsnet in Canada as Connor McDavid gets the glory this time around, set up by Mitch Marner and Cale Makar at 8:18 of the extra session. But prior to that game-winning goal, Jordan Binnington exceptional in net for Canada, especially during a couple of key sequences. He robbed Austin Matthews multiple times as the U.S. was looking to get the victory earlier on in OT. Blues goaltender victimized the Bruins on that same Boston ice in the 2019 Stanley Cup Final, Game 7 to be exact, and he did it again last night.
I don't know if Boston people like me too much, but it's really just a special moment for my family and I, for sure. I can't wait to see them.
As for McDavid, it wasn't a maybe standout performance by his standards until he managed to bury the game winner, and he referenced that afterwards.
I was not very good all night. All was going through my mind is just keep going. I struggled all night, but these guys played great, and we just found a way.
That was McDavid with Emily Kaplan on ESPN.
Struggling. Also, let's give a little credit to the USA defense. That was, I think, really, I don't say locking him down, but especially in the first period, with Eichel and
Slavin was ridiculous.
He's amazing.
Yep. They did a very nice job on him and some of the other guys. I mean, look, it was a tight game throughout, obviously.
Yeah.
So when it goes into overtime, but even you looked at, like, when the game was at 2-2, the shots were dead even. It felt like the chances, while the momentum shifted a few times, and there were instances where it felt like Canada was maybe carrying the play and had the puck in the U.S. end a little bit more. It did feel really balanced throughout.
Yeah, listen, I think McDavid is a classy guy, but he maybe a little credit there to the USA defense also. Like, not just I was playing bad. It's like, well, they were also playing you.
Yeah, and he did. And there was another part in that interview
guy
where he talked about how good the U.S. team was on the other side. But I think that was more just, kind of looking in the mirror a little bit, knowing what's expected of him in a big spot. But ultimately, he comes through with the game winner. Now, it helped that he was pretty wide open there in
wide
the
open
slot.
in the slot. Come on now.
Little too open.
Yeah.
For the best player in the world.
U.S. defense had a nice game in some instances, but not on that final sequence there. Matthew Tkachuk was only able to play 6:47 in this game due to injury, while brother Brady was a beast with a goal and 5 hits, but none of that mattered to him in the aftermath.
This sucks. I thought this team deserved more. We had chances there to finish it off. This has been my favorite hockey memories, just playing for this team.
And he was a little banged up the last couple of days entering this game, but he was throwing his weight around there last night again, just like we saw throughout the course of the tournament. So it's a guy that hasn't really had a lot of opportunities to play big-time games with the Ottawa Senators, so you could see that he felt like this was his chance to shine.
And his brother, who, said this was bigger than the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Just won a Stanley Cup.
Jack Eichel, who won a cup, did as well. So.
Is there any, and I don't think it's going to come from you, CeeLo, but was there any frustration or disappointment in hearing just how much this mattered to guys in some ways more than the Stanley Cup?
I think that there have been some hockey fans of specific teams that have felt that way. Like, I know here in New York, Adam Fox, who plays for the Rangers, said that as well. And honestly, as a Ranger fan, I didn't necessarily love it. I understand it.
Yeah.
I get it for these guys, and I think the effort that they put in that was on display kind of tells you all you need to know about what they feel. And the other thing to keep in mind, like when we're talking how great this is and for the future of hockey, for a lot of these guys, they haven't had this opportunity since they turned pro. Like, they play World Juniors, but we haven't seen the best on best in a long time.
Yeah, because they didn't play the last 2 Olympic cycles.
Yeah. So this has been building for a while. Are they going to be able to recapture that at the Olympics next year? Sure. But every 2 years or so when they play a World Cup of hockey, I don't know. But these guys, I know it meant a lot just because they've been looking forward to finally getting the chance.
So I think I would give them a pass in this way because, again, and not to make it all about the NBA guys, but they're good. I know that some guys are a little banged up and they're going to take a little bit of a break here, but Adam Fox is not going to mail in the rest of the season. Like, I'm watching Joel Embiid play for Team USA, and he was huge in the comeback against Serbia.
Actually, yeah.
He was phenomenal.
To the end, yeah.
And look what happened now. Now, if you're a 76er fan, you're like, what the hell? Like, what's going on? And, we all love USA and gold medals, but it almost felt like you sacrificed something in the regular season to do this. With the hockey players, I don't get the sense they're going to sacrifice anything.
I don't think guys are mailing it in. I think it's just people have always considered the journey to the Stanley Cup and finally getting to win it and hoist it and lift it and all that as one of the more challenging things.
Yeah, it's the ultimate.
So for them to kind of place as much emphasis to this as they did, I don't even like the whole, it's an exhibition, it doesn't matter. It's just such a short period of time, right? There wasn't a lot of buildup. It played out over the course of 1 week, essentially. Not all the other nations were involved, guys that play in the league. So from that standpoint, but I get the U.S.-Canada angle, right? And especially for the U.S. team, guys that came up in the U.S. development program that have played together at times for the United States since they were teenagers, and to get to do it now as NHLers, I think is really what kind of stood out to them. So we'll see what comes of it moving forward, but it is back to business for the league. You got a 14-game slate tomorrow, believe it or not. They just turn around and get right back
I feel like
into
the
action.
Ovechkins of the world are just like, ha-ha.
Yes. Guys that have been resting up the last couple of weeks. I'm
Enjoy
sure.
your vacation, Nathan McKinnon.
Yeah, ready to get back into it. We mentioned the NBA, and okay, maybe their players aren't quite as invested night in and night out like the NHL guys, but you can't accuse LeBron of that from Thursday as he played the back end of a back-to-back. No Luka Doncic, the left calf injury, and they're managing that. LeBron was questionable with left foot and ankle injury, but he ended up playing. He goes for 40 points to send the Lakers past the Trailblazers 110-102. Afterwards, a lot of praise from his head coach, J.J. Redick.
I believe I saw the other day he's a billionaire, and he's playing on the second night of a back-to-back at 40 after 22 years with every frickin' record and every accolade. And the kids will say that I'm glazing him. He's one of the greatest competitors.
Wait a minute, CeeLo, you can't drop that at 41 minutes past the hour.
Do we have to dump that?
No.
No.
Definitely not.
But
okay.
It's a euphemism, but it's, you can get away with it.
does he know what that means?
Oh, he definitely does.
Okay.
JJ definitely knows.
Yeah, he definitely knows.
He
right?
loves being vulgar.
That's why he said the kids will say, He knows he's no longer a kid. He doesn't fall into that category. He's got kids of his own.
I had like 300 ideas of what I wanted to say out of that cut, and then he said that, and I was like, my mind just went to mush.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're just going to have to collect ourselves for a second, and then we're going to get back to it. CeeLo, thanks. We ran out of time here.
That's the way to end on that note right there.
Sure. Okay. We're going to figure out
I want Krispy Kreme now.
What the heck JJ Redick is doing, and then we will collect ourselves and come back. Obviously, some major implications for this show off of the news from yesterday, so we'll get to that. I know the chat is waiting on pins and needles to figure out why they're going to be so upset at us. We'll get to that in a minute. It's the Maggie and Perloff Show. EJ's in for Pearl.
You're in a 5-minute break.
Thomas Smith couldn't help it, he let it slip. Tolbert took a hit, felt his nuts rip. Sprained his fucking nuts, twisted him tight, but came back in the game, ready to fight. He sprained his fucking nuts, his balls got rent, but still made the play no one would expect. Caught that pass to the wind like a stud with his jewels throbbing, lying in the mud.
4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Get back to our hockey hangover in just a moment, but obviously we got some news yesterday. Sad news, really. The Victor Wembanyama's got to be shut down for the rest of the season. EJ, Maggie and Perloff show, EJ in for Perloff. It's a blood clot in his shoulder. They call it deep vein thrombosis. Came out of nowhere. Not the first NBA player who's dealt with it, and it's been to varying degrees of severity. You had a guy like Brandon Ingram who dealt with this, came back, signed big money contracts, and he's fine. Then you have a guy like Chris Bosh, where this ended his career. Now, Bosh had a great career, and it got to the point where it was going to be risking his actual health, his life, and so he had to hang it up. He probably would have played, 5 more seasons?
Definitely. Yeah,
Chris
he was
Bosh
still good,
was
too.
Still very good. So, listen, it's really, really serious. It's scary for Wemby, and so in a year where you're already dealing with the health issues of Greg Popovich, and he suffered a stroke, and thankfully he's slowly going to be making his return to the bench. Now you got Wembanyama, who is the future of the league, an unbelievable star who's been living up to the hype this year. Teams on the, just on the outskirts, maybe playing for a playoff game. He made his first All-Star team. It's just a horrible, horrible timing. And we'll get into the impact of this in a moment, but I do want to, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the impact on this show. Now, this is not the most important thing. The most important thing is Wemby's health.
Absolutely.
Period, full stop. But a certain somebody who's on vacation right now, Mr. Andrew Perloff, McLovin, did at one point call Victor Wembanyama Wembustyama.
Wembustyama?
And because he was so dead wrong about that prediction, and not only was Wemby not a bust last year, he won unanimous Rookie of the Year. Perloff had to drive to San Antonio to apologize to Wemby in French in person. Now, to try to, have a little bit of sensitivity, when Greg Popovich underwent his stroke, we decided to put this prank, silly thing on the back burner. Now, here comes Perloff stampeding into the group chat yesterday from Costa Rica. Oh my God, what's this story about Wemby? And do I now have to still drive to San Antonio?
So the answer should be yes. He definitely still has to drive. The problem is, when is this going to happen now? Because Wemby's done for the year. He doesn't have like a debilitating injury that you would think maybe he can't be on the bench or traveling with the team, I think. But
well, probably not traveling. It's not great, I don't think, to go to high altitude.
Yeah, maybe not traveling, but in terms of like being at home, I meant like, being at the games, being on the bench. I assume he could probably still do that, though. We've seen NBA teams, the guys get hurt, they just send them off and say, all right, bye. Like, that's the last time you see them for the season. So that's my question is, does Wemby have to like be at the game in order for him to do his apology, or at practice, or wherever Perloff's going to do this? Or can he go, show up and be like, hey, I have a message for Wembanyama. I'm sorry, even though you're not here. That's the big question mark.
But here's the thing about our silly side of this bet and us having to pay this off with Perloff driving to San Antonio to apologize to Wemby. I think until we find out what Wemby's future prognosis is, I don't think that using the word bust would be appropriate. It would be way more tragic and sad than just like him not panning out.
Okay.
But let's just say this does mar the rest of his career. Say he doesn't live up to this unbelievable hype because of whether it's going to be the blood clots or maybe even something else.
Yes.
Would Perloff have been wrong? Like, there's a possibility here. Again, I hate using the term bust because I don't want to be insensitive. The guy's dealing with a health issue. But there's a possibility that Perloff might be right.
Oh, no, I
Wemby
disagree.
may not live up to the hype because of these injuries.
No, I totally disagree, because Perloff's whole point, and I'm so happy I was around when he started doing the Wembustyama stuff. Yeah. Like, I was filling in for Sam. He was on paternity leave during this time, so I was on the show a lot during that time. And his whole point was that Wemby was not a good shooter, that he was big and gangly, and guys with his size don't normally develop into great players. It had nothing to do really with health. And even if he did mention health stuff, it had more to do with like, oh, he's gonna like, break his foot, or he's gonna have lower body issues. Like, it wasn't like a health thing where like blood clots or things like that.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like he would be right, because this could have happened to anybody. You mentioned like there's nothing fluky about like Brandon Ingram and Chris Bosh's physiology. It's just like bad luck that these guys have went through that. Bosh obviously having worse luck, his career ended. So I don't think he's off the hook there. Like, he said Wemby was not going to be a good basketball player, and even today he still will mix in, Wemby's shooting 36% point, right?
He's still hanging on.
Right, so he's still hanging on to things. So no, he's still definitely wrong. He said Wemby was not going to be a good basketball player, which he's one of the best in the NBA, one of the best in the world.
Yes, but again, I'm hoping that Wemby gets through this and he starts the season next year, and Perloff is driving back and forth to San Antonio 100 times. He should be a long-haul trucker, for how wrong he was about this thing.
Yeah. He's just spending weekends in San Antonio.
Yeah, right.
That should be
like he's doing time.
Yeah.
I just think that he has to, again, let's say, heaven forbid, Wemby never plays again. It's going to be one of the all-time what-ifs of a generational talent that we never got to see.
Oh, yeah.
And a way more tragic example, like a Len Bias type of thing. But that was way more tragic. He died. But, is there something where if he doesn't max out his full potential, does it mean that Perloff, even if Perloff didn't mean it this way, does he back into being right?
Again, I just look at, I watched him during All-Star Weekend. He was one of the biggest stars. I mean, the Saturday night wasn't so good, but the Sunday night, he was one of the few guys.
Disqualified from a skills competition.
Yeah, that was not a great moment for Wemby. But on Sunday, it was like, oh my gosh, this guy, I'm watching this, and I'm like, this guy's going to take over the league. It's only a matter of time. It's so bad that another so-called face of the NBA, Anthony Edwards, was like, No, Wemby's the guy. He's the face of the NBA. He's the guy that's going to change the league.
Okay, Andrew Kaplan just put a poll up in our chat. Was Perloff right? Your options: no, no, and nope.
What about nah?
Go vote.
Hell nah.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Maggie and Perloff on the Infinity Sports Network.
And off the drop, McDavid went forward, and nearly got a shot on. Carr sends it around. Marner waiting. Connor McDavid scores! Connor McDavid for Canada!
Thank you, Sportsnet, for the sound. And that was the final. The best player in the sport is the ultimate difference maker. 3-2, Canada wins. The Four Nations face-off. Welcome to the show, Maggie Gray. Andrew Perloff, still on vacation. EJ Stewart in for him. And, you know, I think what the biggest part about this from a U.S. point of view, and I know we have a lot of people in Canada, and you're welcome to call us up and gloat today at 855-212-4227 into the victor goes the spoils. But from the U.S. side of this, are you hopeful or are you frustrated? Because, you know, this is an all-time felt like moment, and I don't want to be prisoner of the moment, but,
Sure.
you know, hockey really found something here, and we've had great Olympic hockey, so we know that, you know, playing for your country means so much and can get these great results. But this is like, they caught like lightning in a bottle here, and it became so much bigger than just the game. Yet, EJ, the game delivered also. This thing had so much symbolism. It had so much, like, history. It had so many poignant moments. You know, Mike Eruzione, obviously, Miracle on Ice legend, coming out in a Johnny Gaudreau jersey, the crowd chanting Johnny Hockey. I mean, this was emotional.
Yeah.
Obviously, the politics right now between our country and Canada is a little strained. I think that had something to do with it.
Why is that?
Definitely. I know, Manny will point you to CNN.
Yeah, go to AP News. You'll figure some stuff out.
Some things are going on. And, you know,
AP
even
Sports.
Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, tweeted out last night, you can't take our country, you can't take our sport. And listen, I get why it felt so emotionally charged. It had everything. And part of this, I came in saying, all right, I think the U.S. we're closing the gap here on Canada, you know, but they still have the generational talents. And EJ, you came in saying, I'm frustrated. When are we finally going to beat these guys?
Because at the end of the day, and maybe this is me, and I think it's appropriate for someone like me to be on the show, to be honest, because I'm not someone who's locked into the NHL all 82 games. I'm coming in basically playoff times. All right, what's going on?
Let's go do that
this
hockey.
This is where I'm doing it. Let's go do that hockey, baby. So to me, I'm coming into this event. We haven't had Olympic hockey in terms of like the NHL players playing in the last two cycles. For me, it's like my last memory of big U.S. hockey matchup is 2010.
Yep.
And I feel like I just watched a replay of the 2010 gold medal game where Sidney Crosby calls game and gets a golden goal to advance to win the gold medal for the Canadians. And here we are again where it's the same result. USA plays a really strong game. It looks like they have the momentum. They're not able to finish it in overtime. Then, of course, the best player in the world, who's not on the Americans, it's a Canadian, and Connor McDavid, he wins the game. And it looks like to me, 15 years removed, like it's crazy that was 15 years ago to me, by the way. 15 years removed from that result, it feels like we were at the exact same place. So for me, it's hard for me to feel anything other than frustration because we're Americans, Maggie. We want to be the best at everything. And even though we're going to do that hockey thing, I want us to be the best at doing that hockey thing, Maggie.
I know. I think it gets us into trouble sometimes, quite frankly. I guess you and I are coming at it from a different point of view, and I'm not saying that the U.S. is never going to be, like, better than Canada at hockey. I think we could win tournaments, but it is their national sport.
Yeah.
You know, we have diehard hockey fans. We have a lot of them in this building, so I'm not taking away from that. But it is their sport, and until we come up with the generational talent, then they are going to have the advantage here. And right now it's Connor McDavid. It was Sidney Crosby, who was out on the ice last night. It was Mario Lemieux. It was Wayne Gretzky. We haven't done that guy yet.
Yeah.
And until we do, and it becomes a priority in this country, I guess, or we just get lucky or whatever, then I think they're always going to have the advantage, and they deserve it.
And to be honest, because I feel a little pessimistic in that. I don't know if we'll ever get over this one, to be honest. Because when we think about the best athletes in America, they're simply not playing hockey. Like, the best athletes are playing football, the best athletes are playing basketball, the best athletes are playing baseball. So
are they even playing baseball anymore?
Well, yeah, even that's falling apart, right? But, like, we were in the World Baseball Classic Championship for that works. I still think a lot of the best players are still Americans. So really, you're going to have to come down a bunch of rungs in order to get to the best athletes playing hockey. Like, it's the same issue we have in American tennis, right? Where we're like, why can't we find...
Where's the next male American?
Where's the next Andre
right.
Agassi? Where's the next Pete Sampras? It's like, well, the best athletes, there are more of them being pushed to football. Like, football is so popular. I don't got to tell you guys. You know it already. It's so popular. Everyone growing up, they're not running to these other sports. And
it's also expensive to play hockey.
That's a whole aspect as well. Is that there's a cost effect that's happening that you don't have some of these issues with these other sports, and that's why, to me, the best way to get the best American hockey players, and it will hurt the sport, which is why I don't think you want to see it, is what we've been talking about this whole show. You got to raise the salaries. Like, to me, if you can tell a kid, you pick up that hockey stick, you could be making $50 million a year. I guarantee you will find kids everywhere across the country saying, hey, maybe I got to go do that hockey thing because I'm trying to play football and it's a lot harder and there's a lot of people playing it. It's just because the salaries aren't the same in terms of Major League Baseball, where even we could say that Major League Baseball isn't as popular as it used to be. You can still sign a $750 million contract, Maggie, as we learned with Shohei Ohtani and Juan Soto. So that incentive is still out there. And hockey is not. It's more about just you love this sport and this is the sport you take into. I think that's going to be a big issue. In Canada, this is their sport, like you said, so it just doesn't matter.
So, you're welcome to call us at 855-212-4227. We have our audience in the United States and we have our audience in Canada. We want to hear from both of you about were you frustrated if you're an American? Were you frustrated or were you hopeful watching the Four Nations final last night? I do want to give a little credit to hockey that not all these guys are crying poor.
Sure.
Leon Draisaitl's value, he's making $14 million a year with a $112 million contract.
$14 million, Maggie. I mean, what's that? That's like Josh Hart money. That's
backup center money. I understand. Like, Sidney Crosby is in the midst of a $100 million contract. Nathan McKinnon, a $100 million contract. Connor McDavid makes $12.5 million. I know that's not what LeBron's making. I get it, for the best player in the sport, or whatever you want to do. But $100 million is a pretty good carry.
Maggie, we just talked about Luka Doncic, who we keep hearing is fat and out of shape and it can't put down, the Slovenian treats.
Yeah.
He just almost made $350 million, Maggie, over like a 5-year contract. Like, the NBA guys are making, in some instances, 4 times more than the best player in hockey. Not just the best player, like a generational type star. Like, that's the problem. Is I think in America, the kids don't see that. They don't see $12 million and they're like, oh, that's the thing to do. They see what Juan Soto is making. They see what LeBron James is making. They see what Patrick Mahomes and these quarterbacks are making.
Yeah.
Like, that's a huge thing with this. And as long as Canada's best athletes are going to keep playing hockey, we're always going to be second fiddle.
Yeah. 855-212-4227. I'm split on the money thing because I think if you are, these guys, to make it to this level, you have to be so exceptional, number one. And two, you have to have been playing your whole life. I think at some point you either want to do it because you have this thing inside of you, or you don't. I don't think anyone's saying, well, geez, I can only make $100 million, so I'm going to go be a banker. Like, I don't think that's the calculus. I think they're all trying so hard to do this.
But don't you think there is something, because I know it growing up, like, there is something to and we're losing it a little bit because so many of these athletes are athletes of sons or things like that. But like,
pull yourself out of poverty.
Yes,
and stuff?
This idea of like, oh, this is the way to make it. You want to be a millionaire now. We keep reminding these kids that, hey, you need to go to school because this is essentially a lottery ticket. The odds of making the NFL, the MLB, the NBA are super slim. But these kids see these examples of like, wow, if I could be LeBron James or I could be Stephen Curry or Kevin Durant, like I could be, I could change my family's life. I could change my life. There aren't too many, because there are so many other international players playing in the NHL, and the NHL right now is probably the 4th sport in terms of pro sports. I don't think that young people growing up think of the NHL as a way to get to generational wealth or a way to change their lifestyles. And I think
just
for
think
a lot of
people
sports
play
fans,
sports for more than money, though. I think you're getting to this level, maybe, but I think there's like so many, you're skipping a few steps. I think that there has to be this commitment. It has to be unwavering. It has to be, I always say about these guys, like, you got to be a killer inside. You know, there's nobody who's going to get you up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go skate. It's you. No mom or dad is going to be able to do that. Ultimately, you have to want it. And so I don't know if the money is the biggest thing to me. I just think we haven't found that guy yet. And I'm not saying we won't, but that right now feels like the biggest difference between the USA and Canada. They had Connor McDavid last night and we did not. And I'm not trying to, gloss over Jordan Binnington and how phenomenal the goalie for Canada was in overtime. He was fantastic. But they've had Gretzky, and they've had Sidney Crosby, and now they have McDavid, and they've got it all. 855-212-4227. Let's go to Detroit, Brian, who's in Vancouver. What's the vibes right now in Vancouver, Brian?
It's good. It's really good. I wanted to touch on two things. One, I was actually going to talk about the hopeful American team and to give Americans hope, because I will tell you that I did jump off the couch screaming at overtime, but I was elbows on knees, nervous. I think that Slavin was a beast. Their team played good. And when you look at the overall picture, I don't know how many people know about Quinn Hughes in Vancouver, but he is America's best defenseman. This guy's breaking Bobby Orr records, Ray Bourque records, like things that we haven't seen in 30, 40 years. And he's 25 years old, right? This kid is going to be around for a long time. I know we don't make injuries as an excuse, but there was a lot of injuries, and I think that the Americans are a lot better than people seem to be kind of portraying them. I get it's a downer thing to lose, but I think there's a lot of hope, and their team is really, really good.
Yeah, Charlie McAvoy coming in before the game in a sling, reading the starting lineup for the Americans, and then just bursting into tears. You could tell how much he wanted to play in this game. And then obviously Matthew Tkachuk, who couldn't go past basically midway through the second period.
Yep.
Detroit Brian, thank you for the call, and didn't play for basically almost half the game. Yeah, that was a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, we always
also penalty call. Think too many men on the ice that did not get called in overtime, but
But you know what's funny?
No excuses.
You know what's funny too, though? I think it's almost like because of the culture of hockey. Like, if this was the Super Bowl or if this was a big NBA game, I think we'd probably be leading the show with they missed a massive call. But
they did.
It's almost like to Detroit Brian's point, that's not a thing. We all understand that injuries are a part of the sport, and you play hurt and you give all you got and you play with who you have, and that calls happen. But that's just hockey. In some ways, if there's anything that all these sports can take, is perhaps maybe we're focused on these other things that really don't matter or really kind of ruin the experience because we're so focused on who's not playing, what this ref did, what that ref did, instead of just celebrating the guys on the ice or the guys on the field or the guys in the courts. In some ways, maybe Kevin Durant was right that maybe we do just complain too much. We just took in what was a great night last night of hockey, and we kind of put the other stuff to the side.
855-212-4227. We're asking you a couple questions. Did the NHL embarrass the NBA over the last week, considering how well their gimmick worked? And the NBA's gimmick did not work because the players bought in a lot more on the hockey side, obviously, than the NBA players did. And I'm not saying that actually the NBA basketball was not atrocious this time around, but nobody liked the format. It didn't seem like the players liked the format, put it that way. And it was way too long, and it just did not resemble anything close to the sport. That, at least last night and throughout this tournament, we've gotten the best hockey, and it's looked just dynamite. So a little NBA versus NHL if you want to get in on that. And then also, are you hopeful or are you frustrated by the fact that the Team USA came up short? I'm hopeful. Again, I hate participation trophies, but I am hopeful. And it looks like we put a scare into some of the Canadians who are calling our show this morning, or people living in Canada.
I don't know why, to be honest. I mean, I know that was a great game. It was a close game in Canada. In some ways, Canada is the way we are about our Americans in basketball, right? We expect to win gold no matter what. There are no excuses. So to be in a close game against the Americans in a gold medal game, regardless of the circumstances, is nerve-wracking.
Feels a little too tight.
Yeah, they feel like they should be smoking everybody. But at the same time, I would argue you were in this position in 2010 and things worked out just fine, right? So I just feel like we're kind of in an endless loop here. Canadians have the best players still. The Americans have definitely made some ground, that's for sure. But it just feels like, again, when everything's on the line, we know who has the better roster. We know who has the better top-end talent, and that's going to pull through in the end.
855-212-4227. So reacting off of last night's hockey game. Did you watch it? What'd you like about it? On my top 5 moments from the American point of view coming up later in the show. We do have football news for you. We would not forget about our national pastime, which used to be baseball and is now the NFL. We will get to that in a moment. It's the Maggie and Perloff Show. EJ's in for Pearl.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Get back to hockey in just a moment, but got to hit you with a little Cowboy Quickie, as we always do, because there's some big news yesterday that 7-time All-Pro guard Zack Martin is calling it a career. This has been one of the best draft picks probably in the history of the Dallas Cowboys, which is saying something considering how good they've been at drafting. And a surefire walk-in Hall of Famer. And just, you know, listen, guy played for a long time and is now calling it quits. But just an 11-year career. But just another kind of example of a lost opportunity for these great players. And, you know, for Jerry Jones and for the Cowboys, you got to have a lot of, I don't know, regrets, EJ?
Yeah.
That Zack Martin could never even get to an NFC Championship game, let alone play in a Super Bowl. It's a little not how I felt about Joe Thomas from the Browns. That was way different. Like, he played every snap and, like, never even, like, so
did he make the playoffs
any
even?
postseason success whatsoever. It's not like that. But there has to be some regret that a player like that, who was just so talented, was never able to get anywhere close to a Super Bowl.
Yeah, definitely a missed opportunity. But I'll be honest, I think maybe this is a good thing for the Cowboys. Here's why. We thought when Jason Kelce left the Eagles last year, we thought, where's the leadership going to come from? Like, what's going to happen? Like, there's already a locker room that seems to be fractured. Like, how are they going to get themselves back to where they were going back to the Super Bowl? It seemed like in some ways losing a person so important to the locker room actually raised everyone else's antennas. It made everyone else a little more attentive, made everyone else maybe a little more aggressive in terms of how they approach in locker room issues. We saw Brandon Graham basically go on local Philly radio and say, we have a problem, people. We have a problem that has to be fixed. And then to their credit, they did fix it. So I wonder if losing someone like a Zack Martin means that other guys in the locker room step up as leaders, because Zack Martin was, you know, as we now know, at the end of his career. He wasn't the same player he was when he was obviously in his prime. So maybe some of these guys who are bigger factors on the team take the leadership ownership the way Zack Martin did for his career.
It's your Cowboy Quickie. There you go. Zack Martin calling it a career. Yeah. I mean, this is what's going to happen now with some of these Cowboy guys. If you don't have a change, and if you don't all of a sudden turn the corner here, and let's be honest, I don't think anyone's feeling very confident about the Dallas Cowboys this season. Nope. Haven't gone through the offseason yet. Haven't gone through free agency of the draft, but the Brian Schottenheimer hire, not all inspiring. And now you're going to have guys who had these really good Cowboy careers going to retire with very little to show for it except for their individual accolades. They're all pros, they're Pro Bowls, and they'll walk into the hall, as I said. But, what a waste. CeeLo is here with updates on this fine morning. What's up, CeeLo?
Well, there is no Connor McDavid golden goal last night in Boston without this guy on the other end of the ice for Team Canada.
And it comes to McKinnon. His pass is too far for Reinhart, and back come the U.S. Matthews! Denied again. Loose in front. I can't believe Jordan Binnington. Austin Matthews had another chance, and Binnington made another save.
That was the call on NHL Network Radio from SiriusXM. A few of numerous grade A chances for the U.S. in overtime turned aside by Jordan Binnington. They couldn't get one past him for the final 40 minutes of this Four Nations Face-Off Championship game. And then McDavid buried the game winner from the slot on a setup by Mitch Marner a little over 8 minutes into the extra session. So Canada wins 3-2 after the U.S., of course, took them down in the round-robin matchup back on Saturday. Here is McDavid on the elation of winning against their rival country.
Just to see the reaction, just to know what it means to us. I know it's just a quick tournament, and it's not an Olympic gold medal or anything like that, but it means the world to our group. As you can see, everybody battled so hard all week. So, it was special.
That was McDavid afterwards on ESPN. On the other side, Austin Matthews echoing something we heard from a lot of guys in the lead up to this one, really on both sides.
I think this was probably the biggest game a lot of us have played in. You don't get too many opportunities to wear these colors, to wear this jersey.
Though many of them should get a chance again next year in the Olympics, which we'll look forward to. And some of the bad blood remains. This was U.S. defenseman Brock Faber doing an on-ice pregame interview with NHL Network last night.
As a 15-year-old playing for Osseo Maple Grove, you're playing a lot in Minnesota. What would that 15-year-old tell you at 22 years old you'd be playing for Team USA in this game?
He'd tell me he hates Canada.
Wow.
Pretty strong.
You know, obviously the hockey part of this is, rivals, and there should be a healthy amount of like sports hate. But man, like, where are we going here with this whole Canada thing?
I know. It's intensifying. You also
I don't want to hate Canada.
No, not
I don't want them to
necessarily,
hate us.
But yeah, it is a little awkward.
Like the hockey part is fine. I think
that's always been there.
The USA soccer with Mexico, we have a good rivalry with them and our neighbors to the south. But like, let's put some barriers up here. Let's not let this thing get out of hand. That's what I'm hoping.
I don't know if that's going to happen, Maggie. It doesn't feel like the momentum is
not
there.
going that way.
Yeah, and it feels like the players are taking that tension and bringing it to the ice, which, for our selfish reasons doing this job, is awesome in terms of watching and
how
talking
personal
about
this
it.
got.
Yeah, like this is what you want, right? Like you want sports and these athletes who are making a lot of money to really give a damn.
Yep.
And these guys do. And it's funny hearing one of those players talk about how this is the biggest game they're ever going to play in. I actually think that's a massive deal because even in hockey where essentially because if you can have a hot goalie, you can go anywhere. It feels like you get to the playoffs and a lot of teams can make a run. But a lot of these guys are playing on teams that aren't realistically Stanley Cup contenders. Yeah. And I think that's a big part of why this was big too, was because this was a chance to win something that meant something to these guys. You're playing in an NFL or an NBA season or an MLB season where your team is just completely out of it. Like, yeah, the All-Star game doesn't mean much to you because you're not playing for anything. You're not going to win anything. For these guys, this was something that mattered, and I think that was a big difference.
Well, the rivalry here certainly intensified as we head into next year's Winter Olympics. Meantime, NHL regular season resumes with 14 games coming up tomorrow. To the NBA, LeBron the other night clanked a couple of potential game-tying threes. Wednesday night at home in a loss to the Hornets, he turns around and hangs 40 on the Trailblazers in a 110-102 Lakers road win without Luka Doncic. And LeBron himself was questionable for the second of a back-to-back because of left foot and ankle injuries, but he found a way.
We did get in at 3, but I slept all the way till about 11:30 this morning. Got some rehab after that for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I slept again for about 2.5 more hours.
So he's getting all the
got
sleep.
a little breakfast.
That's my favorite saying.
Then I returned a couple emails. Like, how detailed are we going to get about his schedule?
Yeah. Well, we don't
It's
get
like a
sleep
morning to
here on
Savannah.
morning radio, so.
It's like a morning to Savannah. Saw Bronny upstairs playing video games.
Yeah, right.
That was at about 11:30.
I was jealous just when I heard how many times he said he slept.
Yeah.
He's a huge napper.
Yeah, you guys know I'm a big snapper as well. I'm the person who splits the sleep in terms of how to, do this job. But I was trying to do the math in my head. I was like, what is that, 12 hours he slept that day?
I blinked 3 times at about 3:15.
Yeah, right. Went to the bathroom. How detailed are we going to get here? No, NBA players, the nap is everything. I'm sure for hockey players too.
They do. They do morning skate. They go home, get a nap, a little food, come back in, get ready for the game at night. For a regular night game. On the weekends, sometimes you get the 12:30, 3 o'clock start, and that changes things a little bit. That's why I hate matinee hockey. It just doesn't have the same vibe.
No, it takes a minute to get things going, but good for kids.
Yeah.
You got to be a good napper if you're an athlete.
No doubt.
Yeah, because also it's just the nature of your sport, right? Like you're playing these night games where they're ending
you're on a different schedule.
Ending at midnight or ending at 11, or you don't get out of the arena until a certain time. So
and then they'll go to dinner.
Right.
After that.
Gotta go to dinner.
That is always the thing that is freaking me out because I'm not someone who could sit there and say, I'm gonna order the steak at 12:45 p.m. Or
I always think about it with the baseball players when a guy gets like air quotes the day off. It's like, all right, we're going to give him a day off, except in the bottom of the ninth when suddenly we need you to pinch hit and we're going to actually need you to be peaking now. It's 10:30 at night. We need your absolute max effort. And that you go up there for like one at bat. Say you get Aaron Judge or something for the Yankees. You get the air quotes night off. But
go get hot, kid. Go get hot.
We need you with 2 on and 1 out in the ninth inning. And then how do you wind down after that? You have to get so amped,
exactly.
and then you got to go to dinner.
You swing at the first pitch and you pop it up.
Go back in the dugout.
Your night is ruined. You had the Celtics beating up on the Sixers 124-104, and Joel Embiid after the game talking about, really dejected, talking about how he's got to fix the problem in his left knee to return to his all-star form. The way I was playing a year ago is not the way I'm playing right now. It sucks. Got to fix it. Then I'll be back at that level. Talked about how he's not a dominant player right now. So it's been a forgettable season for the Sixers, to say the least. The Spurs beat the Suns 120-109.
Memorable, in my opinion.
What's that?
Manny's loving it.
Okay.
Memorable, in my opinion.
Well, I guess it depends on, where your allegiances lie, so I get that.
Well, we just all like to, Perloff's a little too high riding on his Eagles that just won the Super Bowl, so we kind of like to even it out with the 76ers.
Philadelphians have to be humbled somehow.
I would agree with that. I would agree. No Victor Wembanyama. He has been shut down for the remainder of the season, dealing with a blood clot in his shoulder. Apparently that issue can be resolved with blood thinners, but a little bit of a scary situation for him coming out of the All-Star weekend. NBA has suspended Bucks forward Bobby Portis 25 games for violating the league's anti-drug policy. You guys touched on Zack Martin with the Cowboys, calling it a career after 11 years. And a little baseball note for you, the Yankees extending manager Aaron Boone his contract through 2027. So he gets a couple of years on top of the last year on his deal after the Yankees, of course, came up short against the Dodgers in the World Series.
Fun.
Sounds so excited over there, Manny.
I know. Manny's wearing your Yankee hat today.
I am hysterical.
Yeah. 2 extra years of a lot of criticism here in New York for Boone. It's always something people don't like
There's
about.
always going to be something. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. It's going to be a wonderful time in the summertime around here.
Well, listen, I think sometimes it's a little too much on Aaron Boone, but to be honest, everyone should be wearing that World Series.
Yeah.
Everybody should.
Yeah.
And I know that Judge had no errors, and all of a sudden you come up with a drop in the 5th inning, but everyone should wear that. It was one of the, and CeeLo, I know you're a big Yankee fan too. I mean, listen, I get it. You went to the World Series, so of course the manager is going to get extended. They're not swapping him out.
I'll be honest, though. Seeing only a couple years, I was like, ooh.
Oh, they do this to him.
And
they've let him go into the last year of his deal.
Well, that's what happened about to happen here.
Yeah, they don't care.
He was going to be a lame duck coach going into.
I think that tells me that if they don't get it done this year, even though he's extended, I do wonder still if they may say, if it's something that's so bad where they flop in the wild card round, they flop in the divisional round, because they didn't commit to him for 5 years. Like this, guy, he has one of the best winning percentages of any manager ever to start their career. You would think that a guy like that who just went to the World Series, he's getting a 5-year extension in most other scenarios. With the Yankees, only a couple years. Like I think I started to think maybe the pressure is getting on Boone. The fans want that, but they haven't really felt that for him.
Well, now that they've made it to the World Series, I think that is now the bar. I think if they don't actually win the World Series over the next 2 years, that the Yankees might move on. I don't know if they'll fire him, but they'll move on after the 2 years.
I think you guys are forgetting a couple very important things about this particular situation.
Go
One
ahead.
is he tied to the hip to Brian Cashman. Brian Cashman is the general manager of the Yankees, and he himself has been on and off the hot seat, allegedly. So he has stood up for Aaron Boone on multiple occasions.
Time and time again.
So are they tied?
I think he has a lifetime job, Cashman,
might.
but continue.
Yeah, he might. He's like the lost Steinbrenner child.
Exactly.
But then there's another part of this. I don't think Aaron Boone makes a lot.
He does
not.
Right.
No.
So, and I think we see this with the Cowboys, and we see this with other teams. They don't want to pay the coaches. So much is going into the salary of the players. They don't want to pay the coaches. There was a rumor that when Boone got hired, I think he was making like $600,000, which is phenomenal for regular people.
I'll take it.
But for the manager of the New York Yankees, I bet by the end, Joe Torre had to have been making, and even Joe Girardi was probably making in the millions. I think they like the fact that Aaron Boone is a little cost effective.
Which is interesting since he had the TV job, before he...
And was a major leaguer. I'm sure he made a lot of money.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, he could have, in theory, just continued on as an analyst and doing the TV thing and living more of a relaxed lifestyle on top of the money he made.
Sure.
So to going back to the... You can see the stress wear on these guys. Like if I showed you Joe Girardi at the beginning of his Yankees tenure, and you could do the same with Boone. I mean, he's got the bags under the eyes.
Oh, it's like the president.
Yeah.
Like Obama when he came in, and when he came out, it was just like, whoa, this one. Have you seen JJ Redick lately? When did his hair become so gray?
Yeah, he's having. I mean, they're playing pretty well, but he's had issues. Hey, can I ask you guys a question about the Bobby Portis thing?
Sure.
Because
basketball.
The agent basically said that this was a mix-up where there were 2 drugs that sounded exactly the same and were spelled almost exactly the same.
Correct.
And somehow that is why he used this banned substance. Is
Yeah,
there
this
any
is like the Princess Bride where they're just like mixing up the cups.
Is there any scenario where you would believe a guy really didn't mean to cheat and use PEDs that you would believe? Because this is probably one that is, it sounds ridiculous, but when I read the name of the drugs, I was like, is this dyslexia? I feel like I'm reading the same name. I don't know what's.
My favorite is the tainted meat.
That was Yannick Sinner? No.
That's
Yannick Sinner
everybody.
was
Canelo Alvarez had a tainted meat.
Canelo Alvarez was that.
Yeah. Alvarez was the tainted meat. I'm sorry. Yannick Sinner, the tennis player, was the masseuse, had a banned substance on their hand.
Yes.
And then
that's crazy.
Massage him.
Yes. And somehow that was.
And they actually bought that until they didn't.
Yeah, Bobby Portis was looking for some Toradol, and he ended up taking something else.
That sounds just like and
but
spelled just like
why is
Toradol.
the other thing anywhere near? Like, here, so short answer, no.
Okay.
And not to be like a total skeptic, but no, I do not believe these guys ever. However, I do believe that Bobby Portis is a pretty stand-up dude.
Yes.
I just think that there's
former Nick
guys they have their reasons and they feel like it's worth the risk.
They threw the assistant right under the bus here. I'm reading the
Yes.
statement.
Yeah, 100%.
That guy is the fall guy.
He will never be working with professional athletes again. Even if he didn't do anything wrong. Even if he did exactly what was supposed to be done, and Bobby Portis just got popped. It doesn't matter. His life is over.
And I mean, what a loss for the Bucks too. I mean, that's one of the best 6 men in the league, and the Bucks are fighting for playoff positioning right now. It's a massive loss as well. Not only is it a boneheaded mistake, but it's a massive loss for Milwaukee.
Yeah, well, the bigger loss is going to be when Giannis leaves in the offseason.
Oh, you're calling a shot now.
Yep.
He's
dying to, guys. That's not me, by the way. That's him. I'm just following the breadcrumbs and the tea leaves that Giannis is putting down. He's always talking about, if they can't prove to me that they're going to be a consistent winner, I've got to put that above everything else. This dude's been looking for a way out since he won the title.
Did you hear who's the favorites to land him if he were to leave?
Oh, probably your New York Knicks.
That would be my New York Knickerbockers.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any chance he's here, by the way. I think
Plus 400.
I think if he's here, it would be actually Brooklyn. Like that,
Yay.
They have
More
better.
superstars going to Brooklyn. Keep trying to work this thing out, guys. How many corpses do you need to see go by the wayside?
Yeah, how'd that work out for you last time, Alex?
Or the time before that with KG and Paul Pierce. This microwave thing does not work.
You guys sound like Regina George. The Nets are never going to be a thing. Stop making the Nets a thing.
You guys know better than I would. I mean, what are the Knicks at this point? What kind of package could they put together to bring Giannis here?
It's Karl-Anthony Towns and
that's it, yeah.
Whoever other player you want. I just don't.
It's not even about that.
Yeah.
It's the player says, I want to go
too.
here and reverse engineer how we're going to make this work.
I know. They just sacrificed so many picks recently to bring in the guys that they did. They're going to turn around and flip Towns out of here now to get Giannis?
I don't think it's the Knicks. I think it's the Lakers.
Yeah.
855-212-4227.
Maggie's
the
just shooting from the logo
I'm
everywhere.
sorry.
I love it, though. No, I love it.
We're all thinking it, or you should be thinking it.
I'm thinking about him in blue and orange.
I mean, listen, watch. You think Giannis, any of these guys, you need to go on some podcast, doing interviews. It's like podcast, interview with the New York Times.
Yeah.
I mean, you might as well have taken out an ad.
If Maggie's going to shoot from the logo, here's my shot from the logo. I don't know. Giannis, I don't think he's the difference maker he was a couple years ago. And I'm actually a little concerned that his game doesn't age that well. Because he's not necessarily a shooter.
No.
He is someone who relies heavily on his physical gifts, just overpowering people, being bigger, stronger, faster. How much longer?
He can basically dunk from the 3-point line. But
How much longer can he play at this level without having some diminishes coming from his offensive game, from his athleticism? Like, it feels like unless he develops more than just being, I'm bigger, stronger, faster than you, that you could see maybe the tail end of his career maybe not look as dominant. So if you're trading a bunch of assets for him, I think your window, you will have a window because he's still one of the top 5 players in the league. But I think your window is a lot shorter than maybe his age suggests. He's probably, 28, 29. You would think, okay, that's a good 5-year window. I don't know. I wonder if it's maybe more like 2 or 3, to be honest.
He turned 30 in December.
30. Okay, yeah. So, to me,
it took a little longer to develop, but he was super raw when he came to the
Yeah,
NBA.
this is a guy that's also, we're not talking about a guy who's taking, I know they did have a few weird first-round exits, but you're talking about a guy that's playing deep in the playoffs, too. He's not just playing 82 games. He's playing 100 games, 95 games. His team is playing deep playoff series, physical playoff series. So this is a guy with some tread on the tires. Not everyone's LeBron James, guys. Everyone thinks that everyone could just play to a 40 and be amazing. We're going to learn the hard way that some of these guys that are going to come up that we think have these expanded primes. I'm not sure about that. I think Giannis will be a great test study for that.
855-212-4227. CeeLo, thank you so much. We'll check in with you next hour. Lots more hockey to do today off of Canada winning the Four Nations face-off 3-2 in overtime. Connor McDavid, shocker, is your hero for Canada. We're back in a minute.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back. It's the Maggie and Perloff show. EJ Stewart's in for Perloff, who's still on vacation in Costa Rica, but he'll be back on Monday. So we got to get to how it's going for Bill Belichick down in North Carolina, because earlier this week we actually had the pleasure and privilege of talking to Roy Williams, the former head basketball coach at North Carolina, and I asked him, so have you talked to Belichick? Have you given him any pointers, about life in Chapel Hill? He said, absolutely not. He had talked to him, but no pointers. And everyone's super excited that Belichick is on campus. Now, here is his general manager. So this is the football general manager for North Carolina Tar Heels. It's Michael Lombardi, is a former GM in the NFL, who is calling North Carolina the 33rd NFL team. Let's hear it.
Everything we do here is predicated on building a pro team. We consider ourselves the 33rd team because everybody's involved with our program has had some form of aspect in pro football.
Okay, so a little calling your shot to call North Carolina football, which is not exactly Alabama and Georgia, and actually the programs like Ohio State who are sending guys to the NFL at the highest clip, but they say they're just running their team like an NFL team.
Sure.
So a couple things here. Number one, I think that they are going to have success. Now, that's all going to depend on our expectations. If the expectation is Bill Belichick won, 6 Super Bowls, so he should come in and win a national championship, well, that's a little ridiculous. But should North Carolina be competing for college football playoffs? I would say after year 2 of Belichick, like year 1, you got to let him get his feet wet. But by year 2, should he be competing for college football playoffs, especially if he goes to 14 or 16 teams and the ACC gets 2 automatic bids?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think they're setting the bar high, EJ, and I think rightfully so. They're calling their shot. Hey, we're a pro team because we have all this pro experience. I think they should lean into that.
But how can you call yourself a pro team when you have places like Georgia that are putting pro players in the NFL every year? Alabama has been putting pro players in the NFL during the Nick Saban era. To me, Ohio State, to me, those are more the 33rd and 34th teams in the NFL than North Carolina is, simply because they got a bunch of NFL guys working there. And I'm starting to get a little concerned because it's not necessarily Bill. And we both love Lombardi, and he's a character, man. He's a character, and he says how he feels, and he doesn't shy away. And I love that about him. But I'm starting to get a little concerned that there's an energy around Carolina that things is just going to be easy. That they just show up and they know so much more than everyone else. That they know everything about what it takes to build a winner in football. Therefore, they're going to come in and just have a lot of success. And I will point to a lot of NFL coaches who went to college and struggled mightily. Herman Edwards at Arizona State was a disaster. Jim Mora at UCLA was a disaster. There are so many examples of guys, and I know Lovie Smith, disaster. I know people will run to Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll's a unicorn.
Yeah.
There are not a lot of examples of guys who were NFL coaches, not guys who went to college, went to NFL, and went back. NFL coaches going to college, having no college experience and winning. So to me, I think I would like to hear a little more humility. I think I'd like to hear a little more, hey, we're trying to learn this landscape. Not so much we know it all, because I don't think you do. I think that, yes, the NIL thing makes it a little closer to running a football and NFL team similar to the way it is in college. But I think there are a lot of questions to be answered. I think there's a lot of things these guys are going to have to learn. I think there's going to be some growing pains, and it sounds like they think they have it all figured out. And I don't think they do.
So, listen, maybe they get their comeuppance here and reality kind of hits them in the face, but I think you're kind of minimizing what is the most important part of this is college football is more like the NFL than it's ever been.
Sure.
And they do have experience in this. And Mike Lombardi has been a general manager, and Bill Belichick basically was the general manager for all those years in New England. So they know that aspect of this so well. And, with Herm Edwards and with Lovie Smith and some of the other guys who went to college, they were kind of like, especially Herm, he kind of goes to college when there's no NIL, and then they kind of have to navigate the world.
Yeah.
Right? It was like the college football was under this huge transition while they're there.
In some ways, the fact that there was this transition was the reason why it failed, right? Because they were giving guys money and under the table and stuff.
Belichick is like, he's here in the new world.
Yeah.
It's still a little of the Wild West, and we have a lot of details to hammer out, but there's no illusions that this is amateur football anymore. And so I think Belichick and Lombardi and all the guys at North Carolina get a leg up here because they don't even have to pretend to have to say like, hey, we're going to just recruit you on our reputations or stuff like that. It's about the money. It's always about the money. And I think the colder and more calculated it can be, the more it favors Belichick. Because, and I'm not saying that Kirby Smart and these other guys aren't calculated and cold and they will cut guys and they don't care. But like for Dabo Swinney, I don't know how cold and calculated he's being when he's recruiting, because they're not going into the portal and they're hoping to develop guys. Like Belichick's like ability to take emotion out of his football decision making is, I think, one of his greatest attributes. And so that's kind of how it is now.
That's funny you mentioned that.
Except for the fact that he decided to part with Tom Brady when obviously Brady still had more in the tank. But there's been multiple documentaries made about all that stuff. That was a mistake. But in a lot of ways, it wasn't mistakes what he was doing during the dynasty, which was he was getting rid of guys a year early than a year too late. And college football is as cold and calculated as ever. That plays into Belichick's hands.
That part plays into Belichick's hands. But what doesn't play into Belichick's hands when it comes to being that cold and calculating is dealing with 18 and 19-year-olds. And that's the other aspect we just don't know. We've seen Belichick and how he handles grown men. And at times, even that felt harsh.
Yep.
Even at times, that alienated people. Can you do that to a 21-year-old, to a 22-year-old? How does that affect the rest of your locker room? How does that affect your roster? Yes, these guys may not have to worry so much about getting money or what they're going to do on their Spanish final, but they are young men who deal with various different things that teenagers and young men do.
Yeah.
And is he the right temperament to deal with that? Again, when I hear we know it all with a 33 NFL team, it suggests to me that you think that these things aren't factors in terms of building a winner, and it is. Like, I know we can, and I have criticized Kirby Smart for, I think, how he's handled dealing with young men because we've seen his guys get in a lot of trouble. But that is a factor that you have to navigate. Like, how does he handle that? Like, Perloff will tell you a million times that the Patriots didn't care about character.
Yeah.
You cannot put a roster of just pure knuckleheads and guys who get in trouble or take those kind of risks without the mechanisms that an NFL team has to protect players who maybe, kind of not so much on the straight and narrow, and think that that's going to work out.
Well, also,
your program could fold if you let things get too out of hand.
You're right about that. I mean, I think the NFL, you have like maybe a couple guys on the team that need straightening out, but I think the majority of dudes in the NFL are actually mature, handle their business. That we just don't really talk about that because it's not newsy. Here's the thing, though, about Belichick and how he runs a program.
Mm-hmm.
There were certain guys who thrived in the Patriot way, and there were other guys who just didn't, and they didn't like it. So he's going to have to find that same kind of person. Like, who is your college Julian Edelman?
Mm-hmm.
Who is your college Wes Welker? Who are these guys? And I'm just your Tom Brady, obviously.
Yeah.
Who is your Matthew Slater? Like, these guys who were Devin McCourty, they were so into the Patriot way, they didn't care that Belichick was not warm and fuzzy, not a lot of charisma. They'll swear up and down he's different behind the scenes, which I never bought, never at all. Yeah. But they'll swear up and down he's funny and he's this and that. So I think it's just about finding your right guy. I don't have a problem with Belichick calling his shot here because he's basically doing NFL light, which is what college football is.
Yeah, I just wonder if that is really the model to winning in college football. Like, I didn't see Georgia. I didn't see Ohio State. Well, Ohio State got Chip Kelly, but Chip Kelly was a college coach. So it's not like they're getting a guy who never coached in college. I don't see those teams saying, hey, let's just hire a bunch of NFL people and do things the way the Patriots do them, and that's how we're going to build a great college football team. That has not happened. What we've seen is teams, yes, they have to get a general manager. Yes, they need someone to raise funds for NIL, But I don't necessarily think that those things mean that, oh, this is now the NFL, and therefore Belichick has this massive leg up when he still has to deal with those other issues in terms of dealing with young men and what it means to maybe be somewhat of a father figure. You have to be that. Like, Coach Prime, to his credit, like, he is a cult of personality, and that also allows those kids to follow and believe in him. Is Belichick able to do that, or is he going to just be, listen, man, this is just, we're on
Do your job.
we're on to North Carolina State.
On to Clemson.
Right.
I mean, isn't that also what the rings are for, though? Put the rings out on the table.
Yeah.
And everybody knows what you're all about. 855-212-4227. So that was a little from the college football ranks. We have more NFL for you. And also, what we saw in Boston last night was epic. Canada beats the U.S. So I get our top 5 moments from last night's final.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. 45 seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Maggie and Perloff on the Infinity Sports Network.
McDavid on the draw. Takes a shot. It actually went forward. McCarr behind the net. Set play. McDavid scores! Connor McDavid scores the goal. Team Canada wins 4 nations gold.
That's NHL Radio. Congrats to our neighbors to the north. Canada victorious in hockey. News at 11. No, this was a good one, though. Welcome to Maggie and Perloff Show. EJ's in for Perloff this whole week. And listen, Canada, congratulations. From what I can tell, it was nerve-wracking for the Canadians because obviously the expectation is that you're going to win and you're going to beat the United States. It took overtime, and the greatest player in the sport currently, Connor McDavid, is the difference maker, along with their hot goalie, Jordan Binnington, who was phenomenal in the extra period. Save after save.
Yep.
And listen, until the United States produces our own Connor McDavid, these results are going to keep going this way. And we've talked a little bit this morning about how this felt eerily like 2010 with the Olympic gold final. That goes into multiple overtime. But it was double overtime when Sidney Crosby scored the game winner, the golden goal. And that was, again, a generational talent that's Canadian-born. That's the difference maker. And here we are now, fast forward to 2025, and it's Connor McDavid, the next Sidney Crosby, if you will, the next generational talent from Canada. And we can trace this back to Mario Lemieux and Wayne Gretzky. Canada always has the best player. And in moments like this, it's the difference. So, it can't be, I personally am not that bummed for the United States. I think this was way more of a triumph. No one expected it to be this popular, EJ.
Yeah.
They caught lightning in a bottle. I think we're going to all be excited for the Olympics in 2026 when the NHL players are back on the ice there after missing the last 2 cycles. All in all, I don't think the U.S. has anything to hang their hat on except for leaving Connor McDavid that wide open in front of the net in overtime.
Yeah, at the end of the day, they have Connor McDavid and we have Austin Matthews. And it's not disrespect to Austin Matthews. He's a superstar. But I saw this on social media last night, and I kind of agree. It feels like we're all Toronto Maple Leafs because how often has Austin Matthews' teams come up short, and him not being able to come through in the biggest spots, and then a bigger star or the other team coming through in the clutch and winning. Like, that's been the American story, and unfortunately for Matthews, that's been a lot of his career. But that's really what it comes down to. And I think at the end of the day, in Canada, hockey is the number 1 sport. Here in America, it's at least 4. Maybe it's less. I don't know. So I think in Canada, you're always going to get the most kids and the best athletes wanting to play that sport. You don't have as much competition for football, for any of the summer sports like, baseball.
I don't know. Their basketball
tennis.
Team's pretty good right now.
Well, basketball plays indoors, though. So, like, basketball is getting good, right? But, like, in terms of besides basketball, like, because of just the climate, like, there are other sports that kids want to play that are outdoors that, like, creates competition to find the best athletes. So we're always going to be facing that disadvantage, and it just feels like we are never going to have that generational guy. So that's why I feel bummed. Like, it was a great night of hockey, so I enjoyed spending my night watching that game. It was just frustrating to feel like I watched this game in 2010. Like, the fact that it was the exact same ending almost makes me feel like it's just going to be just a never-ending loop, that the U.S. will come close, but at the end of the day, they're going to have a Sidney Crosby, a Connor McDavid, or whoever the next guy is. That's going to be better than anyone we got, and we're going to have to be hearing the U.S. anthem played for the silver medal.
Yeah. 855-212-4227. We're on, obviously, in the United States, but we're on in Canada as well. We're on in Toronto. We're on in Vancouver, literally coast to coast in Canada. So we'd love to hear how you guys are feeling this morning. And to the victor goes the spoils in Canada. And for us, we've got to pick up the pieces. I can't help but notice what's been going on, though, in sports over this last week. And over this last week, hockey has been triumphant, and they've been they should be basking in the success of this Four Nations face-off. It worked. It was a gimmick that all the players bought into, and it's awesome. They're giving out medals last night. There's fireworks everywhere. I mean, it worked, and people were into this thing. And meanwhile, the NBA, also on their break, couldn't have fallen flatter in their All-Star game. And it was, again, a gimmick, trying to get more people to tune in. Didn't seem like the players are still caring all that much. And I think that the NHL embarrassed the NBA over the last week. I want to play you a little PK Subban, who's obviously a fantastic player in his own right. He's talking on ESPN, and he said this is a message to the NBA All-Stars about what these exhibitions can be.
I'm sick and tired of making athletes greats, all-time greats, that aren't the best examples. Stephen A., you want athletes to be educated on this and understand this. They got to understand the importance of showing up to the All-Star game and being on the court. Because you're making 100, 200, 300 million, you should be out there banged up. You should be. That's why we pay you, is to max out.
More from PK Subban on ESPN asking the NBA players, what's the motivation here, guys?
It's based on the pride, honor, playing for the guy next to you. I got a question for the NBA players. What the hell are you playing for? What are you playing for? It's not about the money. You make all the money.
Amen. I think PK Subban nailed it here. And he also said one other thing that I really agree with, where he says the NHL didn't do this. Hockey, you know, they create the platform. They create the Four Nations face-off. But the reason why it worked is because of the players. And the same thing should be for the NBA. All Adam Silver can do, he can't make guys care, okay? He can give them the platform. They can, you know, have their TV partners and all of that stuff, but ultimately it's, do the guys care? Jordan cared. Kobe cared. I don't want to say LeBron doesn't care. Sure. He has cared at times in his career. Hell, he's been playing so long. He's, you know, gone through multiple eras. The guys don't care as much now. You can't make them care. And I think Subban has hit it right on the nose here, and I do think that hockey embarrassed the NBA in that way, because he gets to say, we cared about this exhibition and put on a show for our audience. And by the way, when our season picks up again today, you're going to get that same effort again. No load management. That's not part of the culture of this sport. They get the moral superiority. They get the high ground when it comes to that.
But my question to PK Subban is, all right, then why didn't I see that effort in the All-Star game last year or the year before that or the year before that? Why did you have to actually change? It's because, like every other sport that's dealing with issues with All-Star games, that format of just doing East versus West, or just taking a bunch of superstars and putting them on a court or ice or a field mid-season or at the end of the season, wherever you want to put it, if you're talking about the Pro Bowl at the end of the season, it just doesn't work anymore. It's an outdated concept because there is too much money being made. There is too much on the line, and we know a lot more about the risk for injury when you go out there and take the field or take the ice or take the court. And I will quote the great Roman Reigns in WWE in talking about how, yes, PK Subban, yes, you guys work 10 times harder than the NBA guys. You also make 10 times less than the NBA guys in some aspects. So do you want NHL money or do you want NBA money? Because that's really what it comes down to. He can say, what are you playing for, just the money? It's like, yes, that's what they're playing for, because the NBA, not just the players, but particularly talking about the ownership and the front offices, they're no longer looking at these guys purely as a guy that's playing on a random Tuesday night at the United Center where the Bulls are playing some other team. Yeah. It is, this player is a long-term investment in us having an opportunity to win not just one, but multiple championships, because we play in a sport where there's an outsized emphasis on winning championships and how many championships you win. If you're a great player in this sport and you don't have any championships, you're worth nothing, basically. That is what these athletes feel like they're being told. So, yes, you can go max effort on a random, Tuesday night in Edmonton and not have that pressure and that attention of, well, you're not going to be a team that's actually going to win a championship, so you don't really matter. It doesn't. That calculus doesn't come into play. So we're talking about apples and oranges when it comes to dissing the NBA guys, and then saying the NHL guys where they're playing on pride. It's like, well, yeah, they have a lot less to lose.
Well,
this is real.
I don't know. I mean, don't you reap what you sow? Like, you have ring culture, so now all of a sudden nothing matters. The regular season doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Your playoffs are so long. Who cares? Well, you've devalued your sport, right? And you've created a culture where, yeah, I know load management is not only on the players in the NBA. It's on the sports science people. It's on the front office. But at some point, it becomes part of the culture. And I do think there are guys who would just never expect to play anywhere close to a full schedule. And that's not just the front office that's telling them. Like, I don't think Joel Embiid ever thinks that he's playing anywhere close to a full schedule. I don't think it's important. It's not a priority. And what may have started in the front office, I think now just becomes part of your culture, which is playing is not the thing, which is crazy. And then the other thing that PK said is, a little of that's what the money's for. And I think that what we've learned, especially with the NBA, is that the money doesn't necessarily make you work any harder. That's not like the carrot that ends up working. Maybe it's like a perk that goes along with the sport. But Paul George just cashed in this huge contract with the Philadelphia 76ers. What do you think it's making him play harder?
No,
absolutely not.
No, but you know what happened though? The last 2 years with the Clippers, a team that really has adopted the San Antonio Spurs model of being the team of load management.
Yeah,
they've load managed Paul George and Kawhi Leonard to death.
And they still got hurt.
And they still got hurt, but Paul George put together 2 really good seasons. And he had to put together good playoffs, even though his team lost. And that's why another team looked at a 34-year-old guy who's coming off broken legs, broken shoulders. I mean, Paul George has every injury in the book. And said, you know what? He played really well last year. We can get 50 games from Paul George and a good playoff run. Maybe we can win, because at the end of the day, all we care about is winning a championship. Like, Joel Embiid is under this pressure. The general manager is under this pressure. The ownership is under this pressure. That's all that matters in Philadelphia at this point, because they've been to playoffs. They've been to what they've done everything else except winning a championship. So again, the calculus is just different. What we're rewarding guys in the NHL for is different than what we're rewarding guys in the NBA for.
I know, but I think it's a little too simplistic, and maybe this is our American view of the NHL, and I think the Canadian view would be different. You can tell us at 855-212-4227. I think there's so much pressure for the best guys to win in the NHL. I don't think that they are absolved from this at all. I don't think that Connor McDavid is going to be, just let off the hook if he never wins a Stanley Cup. The thing is, so far in the, for the generational talents we've seen in hockey, they've all won, and they've all won big and a lot. So, but if McDavid continues to go to Stanley Cup finals and lose, I definitely think it chips away. Like, he's definitely going to feel it. He's going to feel the pressure, maybe not from the American audience as much, but definitely the Canadian. Think of how much pressure was on Ovechkin. There was a ton until he finally won.
Yeah, but we just saw Connor McDavid in a Stanley Cup Finals last year, and what was the takeaway? That guy is awesome. Like, that guy is great.
We expect him to be back.
We expect him to be back, sure, but there wasn't this groundswell of man, how can you be the best player and not get it done?
Well, because there's a little okay, but
because that's not the case in the NBA.
But there were times
LeBron
when
fell
Jerry
short.
West was the best player in a finals and they didn't win, and I don't think now Jerry finally won.
Right, and he was depressed and it killed him almost.
But I don't think people who were watching Jerry West in his prime were just like, man, what a loser.
They did with Wilt Chamberlain. And he won. That's my point. That's a guy that won 2 championships. And if you read, and I have done it, you read articles from the 60s and the 70s talking about Wilt Chamberlain, talking about some of those guys. It's like, yeah, he's great, but he didn't win. He didn't win enough, at least. Right. And that becomes a big part of these guys' stories. I just mentioned, Austin Matthews was our captain. He was our best player. That guy, they can't get past the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
And he's still the captain. And they lost this game where he missed some big goals. Binghamton was awesome, but he didn't come through. Is he going to have any backlash coming back? He's playing in Toronto. It's a little weird, so he's playing for a Canadian team. But is there any American backlash to Austin Matthews coming up short again? No.
Well, I also think that's because this expectation still right now is that Canada is the better overall program. Now, we've closed the gap quite a bit, and I know it was a pick'em game last night, but it's not, I still don't think it's the same because our expectations are in a different spot. Like, when we go into the Olympics for Team USA basketball, we expect to win. If we fall short, it's a tragedy.
But how many?
I think it would have been. It's a tragedy last night if Canada doesn't win this. It's not that yet with USA.
But how many of these NBA stars that we're talking about, where it is a championship or bust atmosphere, where they were playing against better teams? Like I mentioned it a bunch of times because it's true. We could say everything we want about James Harden and how lazy he is and how blah, 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 blah. This guy was playing against the Warriors. He was playing against the best dynasty we've had in the NBA for the last 10, 15 years. Did we ever at any point think he was supposed to beat those teams? Russell Westbrook's playing for the Thunder without Kevin Durant. Did we ever think he's supposed to beat those teams? How many times did LeBron James going up against the Warriors, going up against the Spurs earlier in his career, going up against the Celtics, teams that were much better?
Yeah.
Did we ever sit there and say, you know what, the other team was just better, so we got to give them a break? No, it's you're one of the best players in the world. You're the MVP. You're this. You're that. That means you have to win a title. So when these teams now and these players make calculuses, are like, how can I ensure that I'm at my best when people care the most, which is the NBA playoffs? That's where we've had this play less games, rest guys. That's just the situation in the culture that's been established in the NBA.
Yeah, I know.
That
but
the
EJ,
NHL they don't have that same.
Well,
they don't have that same culture. It's just different.
I don't know about that. Number one, but two, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily the right culture then for the NBA, because look at what they've had to do to try to combat it. NBA Cup, trying to make these guys, you can't be eligible for postseason awards unless you play a certain amount of games. Like, it's a problem in the NBA. It's a problem. And it's one that the NHL was put on display, just how much that, like, the NHL may have 99 problems. That's not one.
But at the same time, though, Maggie, what I think will lead to frustration from people who are NBA players or people who support the NBA is, well, where was this energy over the summer when we saw Team USA? We had, wherever Jokic's from Croatia. We had all these, great matchups in the Olympics. Canada went on a great run. They were undefeated until they lost in the knockout round. Serbia. Thank you. France going to the championship gold medal game. Those were awesome games. That was competitive basketball.
Yep.
There was no guys pulling back, guys load management. You mentioned Joel Embiid. He showed up hurt. He showed up with a bad knee, and we were like, this guy shouldn't even be playing. And he was out there giving as much as he had. And for a lot of that tournament, it was nothing. He didn't play great until the last two games. They did that. And what did we hear? It was, well, this isn't really the NBA season. This isn't, what does this really mean? Like, it's like in some ways they can't win because the NHL could do it. And just because it's at a different time of the year, it's like, oh, look how great the NHL did. Well, the NBA guys did the exact same thing just a few months ago. And there are a lot of basketball fans who said, man, Olympic basketball was awesome. Nobody could say anything bad about that. And there was a lot of poo-pooing of that. So, again, we go back to with the NBA players.
Here's the thing you're missing, though. Joel Embiid can play great in the Olympics and then come back and miss 30 games in the first half of the season.
Part of that was because he played in that other thing.
I know, but see, that's the thing. These hockey players are not going to mail in anything. Like, they get off of this tournament, and it's not Luka Doncic missing a back-to-back because he's out of shape. Like, hockey just can claim such a moral high ground here because it's awesome. Joel Embiid want to play for the United States, help us win a gold medal, fantastic. And then when you come back and it's your actual job, you're a no-show. That the hockey players don't have to deal with that criticism. Let's get to Steve, who's in San Diego, wants to talk about ring culture in the NHL. Good morning, Steve. What's up?
Good morning, Maggie. So I want to talk a little bit about that, specifically growing up playing ice hockey. That does matter. The amount of rings somebody wins, when we talk about whether they're making the Hall of Fame or whatever, it's always brought up. They're going to talk about it for Alex Ovechkin, the grade 8, how he won. He got his one. But did he get 3 like Sidney Crosby? No. So they still use that metric. It's just it's not everything, I guess. And another thing is when you're talking about the NHL, they're, 4th, 5th in sports in America? They're like the challenger in a boxing match. They're trying to make a name for themselves. Basketball, football, it's established here. Yeah. Hockey's still somehow trying to make its foothold within America and popularity. So these guys, if you listen to the best player, McJesus, as they call him, when he went out there at the end of the game yesterday and said, we hope we put on a good show so that more people become interested in our sport, that's just different than what NBA players are doing because they don't need to do that.
But Steve, to your point, like, yeah, the bar is probably a little bit higher for maybe basketball, football, college football, whatever are like our air quotes main sports in the United States. But also to much is, given, much is expected. Like, think about the NBA in this country, in America. We have already put you on this pedestal. Like, you're starting at a much more privileged, if you will, place because we give you more airtime. We're interested in your personal lives. We're interested in the shoe culture. Like, it goes so much more beyond that. And Steve, thanks for the call. So in some ways, the NBA is such a head start in this country over hockey. I'm not going to lower the bar for the NBA, just because like we're a little bit more invested as a country.
I understand that. But again, I think there's a reality of if Connor McDavid was making $55 million a year, do you really think the Edmonton Oilers are putting him out there in a game where his knee's a little bulky or there's a little concern about whether or not if he keeps playing, he could have a long-term injury? No, because at the end of the day, all of these businesses, well, I was going to say franchises, are businesses. Yeah. It's all about making money, right? That's, at the end of the day, why these people are involved. So if there's not the same cost risk that comes with guys playing every night, guys giving it all. And we talk about hockey and how much playing injured and giving 100% no matter what the situation, how much of that is the culture of the sport. If there's a benefit to that, then there's not going to be this reasoning to feel like you have to protect your investment. Okay, in the NBA, it's totally different because there's just way more money on the line. Okay, so maybe the dollar amounts are bigger, but it doesn't mean the investment is not there. Sidney Crosby is the third highest paid player in the NHL. He's on the ice last night. It's not $55 million, but again, their salary caps aren't as big. So relative to them, it's big. Nathan McKinnon is the fourth highest player in the NHL. He's on. McDavid, fifth highest paid player. He's on the ice. Their investments are there, and they're playing hard. And I think it was smart that the teams actually didn't take this away from them because it's like keep the bigger picture, I guess, in mind. Okay, got to take a quick break. Yep. We have my top 5 moments from last night from the U.S. point of view. I know. We lost.
Oh, say, can you see?
Womp, womp, womp. But 5 great moments from the U.S. side. Try to make ourselves feel better. Are we coping? Maybe. And we see you guys on the phones. Again, 855-212-4227. Did the NHL embarrass the NBA over the last week? What do you think?
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
This NASCAR race preview sponsored by WeatherGuard Truck and Van Equipment. They're just as driven as the hardworking pros they serve. Catch NASCAR in Atlanta for the Ambetter Health 400 on Sunday, February 23rd. I was really into the Daytona 500. I don't know if you guys were catching the fever on that last week.
I was a little bit. I was like, man, I should have been paying attention more to this than the NBA All-Star thing.
Too much rain. Too much rain.
Well,
torture.
I mean, but that's what kind of makes it cool. I don't know. I was into it.
Yeah.
Let's go to Adrian, who's in Maryland. We've been talking about last night's Four Nations face-off. And did the NHL embarrass the NBA over this last week where the NHL's gimmick 100% worked, the NBA's did not? Adrian, what do you think?
Hey, I'm just going to say I don't think they embarrassed them. They just made it look better. I'm an all sports guy, so my thing is even last year, the All-Star game. If you don't play defense, your goalie's going to get killed. So they do play defense. Unfortunately, in the NBA, if they don't play defense, they're giving up a dunk or ooh-ah layup for the crowd. So in the NHL All-Star game, you have to play some kind of defense because the guy next to you could get killed.
Right.
So they're looking out for that. NBA, they don't, they're not worried about that. They're worried about not getting hurt and pleasing the crowd.
You're right. There is a difference with the sports, Adrian. It's a good point.
Yep.
There's some sports you can kind of walk through a little bit easier. Like, this is why the Pro Bowl never worked. It was always an awful product because you just can't play football at half speed. It just looks so bad.
Yeah, well, Sean Taylor once tried to introduce real football to the Pro Bowl, and your punter almost died.
I know. Brian Moorman almost basically almost ended his career.
That's when football was football.
Like, what are we doing? Anyway, can't play that sport half speed. can't play baseball half speed,
Nope.
quite frankly. And
That's why their
I think
All-Star game is great.
Exactly. Like their All-Star game is great because guys are trying because you're not going to groove a meatball to, Pete Alonso or whatever. So
Comebacker at 120 miles an hour doesn't sound fun.
No, exactly. Like you got to play 100%. So yeah, I mean, basketball is a little easier.
And there's an aspect, too, I was thinking about both sports between basketball and hockey. And hockey, they have injuries, they play through injuries. But basketball, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe CeeLo could correct me if I'm not, but it feels like the chance for the fluke injury that's devastating is more likely than in hockey in terms of like, a guy just jumps and then he blows out his knee.
You mean the non-contact
Yeah, the
stuff?
non-contact injuries where in hockey, you may get a shiver, you may get knocked into the ice. But I mean,
skate to your
skate to the neck. Yeah, there are
Mm.
dangers, but it doesn't feel like with basketball, could we say guys are going 30%, 40%? It's like, well, yeah, if them going 90, they could jump and somehow something pulls or something tears. I don't know if that's the same risk in hockey.
You don't see the non-contact as much in hockey. I mean, it does happen, but I feel like it's not nearly as common as some of the other sports.
Yeah, you get the broken bone from blocking a shot or whatnot down in the ankle.
Yeah.
But
Take a puck to the face.
Puck to the face.
A lot
Puck
of
to the neck.
dental work involved.
Bleh. Yeah, being the official dentist of any NHL team, good spot to be in.
Yeah.
You're
Money.
You're going to be a busy person. All right, let's get to my top five moments last night from the Four Nations final. And this is going to be from the Americans' point of view because, well, I am an American. I know that we lost.
Oh, is that right?
I know. I'm not Slovenian. I'm American. So here are the top five of my best moments, greatest moments last night from the American point of view. Are we coping or making ourselves feel a little bit better? Maybe.
I don't know. We'll see how this segment ends. I feel already a little down.
Okay, number 5 on the list, emotional moment, Charlie McAvoy, who got hurt in this tournament because he was playing so physical, coming into the locker room before the game to read the starting lineup, and after he does it, hugs one of his teammates and just devolves into just a puddle of tears.
Yeah.
You could see how much this really bothered him that he couldn't play. Charlie McAvoy, 5 on my list of greatest moments yesterday. Okay.
Awesome.
Number 4 on the list of greatest moments from last night, but this has really been throughout the tournament from the U.S. point of view, how much they leaned into the movie Miracle, and they were even playing a snippet of Kurt Russell as Herb Brooks in his famous speech from the movie.
Tonight, we are the greatest hockey team in the world. You were born to be hockey players. Every one of you. And you were meant to be here tonight.
All-time great sports movie,
Yeah.
great sports moment. That didn't age it aged well for the Miracle on Ice team. Not so much for our guys last night. Didn't end up winning, but still great. They played it in the arena last night. I thought it was, if you're going to lean into any movie, and it, obviously all the symmetry where, what is it, tomorrow is the anniversary of the Miracle on Ice, February 22nd, 1980. Okay, number 3 on the list of my top 5 moments from last night's Four Nations face-off from the U.S. point of view, the Boston crowd. Looking back on it now, couldn't have been in any other city. Like maybe Detroit, maybe New York would have brought it, Philadelphia, maybe Vegas would have had its own kind of weird thing. Turns out, hindsight, Boston, perfect spot, chef's kiss, had plenty of people from Canada.
Oh, yeah.
So you could actually have the Canadian crowd there too. Didn't feel so super one-sided. Boston is a hockey town, even going to college with the bean pot and all of that. Chef's kiss, Boston, you rocked. Even the crowd shots from bars around Boston that they were showing during the broadcast. Just kudos to Boston.
Epic aura.
Yeah.
Epic aura last night. And Boston had a lot to do with that. I agree.
The vibes immaculate, as the kids say. Okay, number 2 on my list of top 5 moments from last night, but really the tournament, is the glow up for the Tkachuk brothers. And obviously, if you're a hockey diehard, then the Tkachuks have not just been this generation, but going back to their dad and Keith Tkachuk. But Brady and Matthew getting their moment. Feels like, could we have the Kelseys? Could we have like the NHL's Kelseys?
Right.
I don't know. But all I know is that the Tkachuks had a great moment, and they deserve it. They play hard. I think we can all get behind the Tkachuk brothers.
Is there another single pop star that we can get one of them with?
Yeah, right.
Is
Where's Sabrina Carpenter?
Sabrina Carpenter, is she single
hands
still?
off.
I believe they're both spoken for.
Are they married? Probably.
Or one is, I think Brady is, and Matthew is engaged, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
All right, well.
Sorry to burst that bubble.
That's okay. They can still be the Kelseys. We can still get a podcast.
Yes, we can podcast. Well, just turn on a microphone and get a URL. You're done.
In fact, where is the podcast?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
now I feel like I'm missing something. And my number one moment from last night, from the Americans' point of view, from the Four Nations face-off, is the legend Mike Eruzione coming out in the Johnny Gaudreau sweater and his jersey. And I'll add on top of that the Johnny Hockey chants that we heard in the third period and even into the overtime. Absolute chills. Couldn't come through and obviously win it, but the fact that the Gaudreau family was such a big part of this run, and for someone like Mike Eruzione, who is like, is he Mount Rushmore of like meaningful athletes throughout the history of sports with like Bill Russell and other Muhammad Ali? Like Mike Eruzione is a thing. He's a planet when it comes to how important he is. You can't tell the history of sports in this country without him.
And unique though, because the other guys you just mentioned, went on to have massive successes as their careers went along. Like that was the peak for Eruzione. Like he had essentially a cup of coffee from an NHL standpoint, but that is such a massive moment in U.S. sports history, no doubt.
So those are my top 5 moments from the U.S. point of view. CeeLo, did I leave anything out?
I don't think so. I was very curious. You mentioned the Boston crowd. I was curious about the anthems, and there was sort of build up for that. I was curious. Did either of you feel this is like deep throat conspiracy theory situation?
Okay.
The gal that sang "Oh Canada," I thought struggled. So it felt like I feel like the crowd maybe was a little hesitant to really, if they were planning on booing the Canadian anthem. There was a little bit of restraint there, it felt like, because it was just kind of awkward as she was struggling through
Something was off.
Yeah.
I thought maybe she was getting like feedback in her ear.
Maybe.
Like we all work with headphones for a living, and if you're getting your own, like you have to hear yourself, but not an echo or something.
Yeah, it's a nightmare when that happens.
So I thought she was kind of, because she slowed it down so much.
Yeah.
I thought maybe she was a little nervous. I actually thought maybe
that.
she was like, all right, here comes the booze. Here comes a very hostile environment. And perhaps that also threw her off a little bit as well.
And I feel like you heard it a little bit at the beginning, but then
It just never got better.
Kind of evened out.
And then I think you actually had a lot of Americans singing along with it as well as it went along.
Well,
so
it is a banger. As I
it
said
is.
yesterday.
I totally agree.
Yeah,
So-
we talked about our top 5 anthems from yesterday. What did we say was the top 5 most like inspirational? Or
Oh, yeah.
What was the list?
Liechtenstein, I think, was on the
Yeah,
list.
Liechtenstein made the list.
Netherlands,
Germany.
Yeah, I think
Germany was in there. Yeah, I was a little
I think
surprised.
you said
Mexico.
Yes, you did mention my Mexican anthem, and I think you also mentioned the Argentinian anthem.
Yeah, and we were on there too,
were
but
we?
not Canada. And I think that
Really?
list was very flawed. Yeah, this was
Wow.
someone else's list. What do they know?
Okay.
It was like the Classical Music Society or something like that.
Yeah, I love "Oh
Hacks.
Canada."
Our home and native land.
I'm not afraid to say it. I mean,
feel
the
like-
Star Spangled Banner gets me pretty much every time, but "Oh Canada" is a good anthem.
I feel like in some ways, shouldn't there be like a shelf life on an anthem? Like, I guess we'll never live long enough for them to change it, but is
EJ,
Star
come on,
Spangled
you
Banner?
want to change the anthem?
Well, no, I'm just asking, like, how long is the Star Spangled Banner going to be our national? Is it going to be forever? Like,
Yeah, as long as we're a country.
why? So we're not going to update the song?
Wouldn't shock me. If
What are we
going to
change it to?
Like
I
don't
They
know.
Not Like Us?
Yeah, Not Like
Kendrick
Us.
Lamar?
I like that.
Is that the new anthem?
I don't know, but it wouldn't.
Do you
Dipset
let the
anthem.
public vote on Not Like Us? I mean, what are even your options if this is like a poll? If we could change the anthem to a pop culture song?
Oh
what
yeah, I
is
don't
it?
think they're changing it to a pop culture song.
No, I think
they
it
would
would get
adjust the
Freebird.
lyrics.
What is it, like Dr. Feelgood?
No, I think
What
they
are we
adjust the
gonna do?
lyrics of the existing anthem.
I would assume you would have like a committee that would come together. You'd find some songwriters,
I know, but-
and you would say, "Hey, we're going to make a new national anthem."
Isn't this creating a problem and then trying to solve it? Like,
let's just do Freebird, Born in the USA, mash them up together. That's your new anthem.
there you go.
It just, because I mean, 400 years from now, like some of these references that are in the Star Spangled Banner may just seem so ridiculously outdated. We're like, what?
They're
are they even
outdated
talking
now.
about?
Yeah,
well, exactly.
I was gonna say definitely.
It's
yeah.
not gonna. Yeah, it's
I
only
still
gonna get
don't know
more
what some of the
outdated.
words mean.
Also, we're pretty young as a country. You know, there's
That's
like
my point,
other
though.
countries that have been doing this for a lot longer.
As the teacher in Mighty Ducks 2 said, America's a teenager. I'm talking hockey. I got to get my
Going through
D2
it.
reference in
Yeah,
there.
and going through it, aren't we?
D2, by the way, better than D1 in my opinion.
Better. Wow.
Yeah, hot
that's
take.
a strong
That's a hot
take.
take.
Yeah.
I do like D2.
I love
I'm not even gonna push back on that, but that is
Wait,
I would
wasn't
say
D2 international competition?
It was.
As opposed to
That's why I
D1?
like-
I
that's why I like
the,
it.
the junior Goodwill games. in Anaheim.
Finland, right?
No, it's Iceland.
Oh, Iceland.
Yeah,
right.
Which, by
Sorry,
the way, why was Iceland like these terrible villains?
Powerhouse,
Like, I didn't understand why they were so
They had the
great.
slick back hair.
Because of the coach.
Yeah.
Right. He was cutthroat.
Literally, they were wearing like all black. It's like, can we put it a little bit more on the nose? Like, there wasn't literally a black hat you could find to put on them. But, it's Disney. Okay, CeeLo, will you hang around for a second?
Sure.
Didn't get to your headlines. Don't want to shortchange that. 855-212-4227. I gave you my top 5 moments from last night. What are yours? And also, did the NHL embarrass the NBA over the last week with how well this worked with the Four Nations face-off? Don't move.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. 30 seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back, Maggie and Perloff Show. EJ's in for Perloff today, and we'll get back to the hockey and Victor Wembanyama in just a moment because Chris Lopresti is here doing updates for us today. But a little behind the scenes, this is one of those very lucky days where we get to work in this industry and people bring us free stuff. So thank you to Sammy Steinlight and everyone at the Red Bulls, New York Red Bulls soccer team who's here. Not only do they bring us T-shirts and awesome swag, they have like a full spread of food out. And we work through double pane glass, and we can still smell everything that they were cooking in the newsroom. That's how you know it's good. And I want to eat this stuff. It's stadium food, elevated stadium food. It's 8:45 a.m. on the East Coast. I don't know if I can eat a fried chicken sandwich. They have some very fancy gourmet hot dogs out there.
I did the hot
falafel.
dog. Mm-hmm.
It's just a little early for that food, but I want to eat it.
Well, I house mine already.
Tots. Yeah, loaded tots.
Loaded tots with brisket on top.
And they're making it. The chef is here.
Yes.
I met the chef. So
yeah, shook his hand.
It's an interesting dynamic. A lot of times food will arrive already prepared or, breakfast, dessert items.
Yeah.
This is a little different. They're like making 5-course meals over down the
I
hallway
know.
there.
But it's 8:45 a.m. Can you eat a Caesar salad wrap?
Try me.
You can. What happens after that, I'm not sure.
So I don't ask people to do things for me a lot around here. I'm not one of those people. Everyone's got to do everything for me. I'm totally self-sufficient. But I did ask Manny, can you please grab me?
Manny, get this sound. Manny, grab that sound.
I just said, well, the sound, that's for the show. I meant, me personally. Like, ask some other people around here about ordering them breakfast and stuff like that. Okay, so I said, Manny, do you mind grabbing me something? He said, sure, what do you want? I said, I'll take the chicken. I meant the chicken sandwich. Manny brought me back just a piece of fried chicken that EJ is eating.
Yeah.
Cutlet.
I'm literally just eating a piece of chicken breast.
He went to confirm, and he was like, just the chicken? You were like, yeah, just the chicken.
That's why I came back in to confirm, because I thought it was weird, too, that you just wanted just the chicken. I came back in for you to say, yeah, the chicken sandwich, but then you just reiterated
just the
What is
chicken.
this? Who's
the
on
chicken.
first? No, just the chicken. Like, I didn't also want the falafel, the
Right.
tater tots, and the hot dog and all that stuff. I can't eat a hot dog at 8:45
Well,
in the
listen,
morning.
this is why English is my second language. You just live and learn, okay?
Thank you. You did bring me the sandwich, and I'm excited to eat it.
I'm excited to eat chicken breast. That's all I'm having now.
EJ's like, can I get a fork?
Yeah,
just start
same.
eating it. All right. Well, anyway, we're very lucky. So thank you to the Red Bulls. This is not something that we take lightly, and we're always very appreciative of free food and free everything. CeeLo, what's going on in the world?
All right, some really strong defensive zone play for the U.S. at times last night in Boston, but leaving arguably the world's best player all alone in the slot in overtime turned out to be ill-advised. That's Sean McDonough with the final call on ESPN. And that last part, a huge part of the equation as it turned out, because Jordan Binnington made, I would say, 4 or 5 exceptional saves earlier in OT to keep the game alive until McDavid buried the winner, as you just heard there, top shelf past Connor Hellebuck. Canada 3, the United States 2 in the first ever Four Nations Face-Off Championship game. A lot of questions and criticism for Team Canada going with Binnington as the goalie, and he certainly made that decision look pretty good last night, even kind of blacked out in overtime a bit.
You don't really remember you're in the moments, but it felt good to make some saves, and then felt such a great feeling to see the boys bury it.
And that set off the celebration. Binnington with NHL Network Radio. Tough loss for Mike Sullivan's squad, especially because they had a 2-1 lead and then carried the play for much of the third period, plus those golden opportunities in OT, but he appreciated the spectacle of it all.
I thought our team competed extremely hard all night long. It was a tremendous hockey game, fast pace. This is the fastest hockey that I've ever been a part of. the whole tournament.
So that was on display. You also had the ongoing back and forth involving Brandon Hagel and the Tkachuk brothers, specifically Matthew, the last few days, kind of trading jabs, while Brad Marchand never one to shy away from a strong take or giving someone the business.
Sometimes when you shoot your mouth off in the media, I mean, it bites you. You can do that during the season, but when you're playing best on best, it's different, and they got a little bit ahead of themselves.
A little bit of a flex
All right,
on the
Brad,
Tkachuk brothers.
calm down a little bit. You won 3-2 in overtime. You didn't whitewash anything.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Now my little patriotism is going to come out. Come on.
I'll give you another one.
Yeah.
Hagel responded to Matthew Tkachuk's suggestion that Team Canada maybe didn't like each other because they didn't have the group text going.
I was just about to tell you about this.
So Hagel posted to his Instagram story a screenshot of a group chat with his teammates titled Champions and a big Canadian flag pasted right on top of it.
That one, okay.
Mhm.
That one's fine. You did have the Tkachuk brothers, and I forgot who was. Was it Miller? No, who else was
Miller,
on it?
right?
JT Miller.
Yeah, JT Miller, where they were like planning to, drop gloves.
Yeah.
Okay, that one. But you
Marchand
you shoot
he
your
likes to
mouth
mix
off
it
in the
up,
media,
yeah.
and you're gonna eat it. It's 3-2 overtime.
Yeah.
We still lost, though. At the end of the day, it still was the result that you didn't want. And I kind of
But
like
they didn't
it.
get embarrassed at all. Like
No.
I think that's the kind of thing that Marchand's saying. Like, you give us bulletin board material, we're gonna bury you. It's like that's not what happened. This was an even game.
No, but I think there is something to you not getting it done in the end, in the clutch. I think there, in some ways, that's almost more painful. Is that you guys ran your mouth off because you thought this was going to be different, and for a while it thought like it might be different, and it's still the same, baby. It's still old Canada.
I don't know. You got all these. We have people calling from Canada today saying how nervous they were watching the game.
Yeah, but that's not the players though. The players, they might not have felt that. They how many times do you see athletes be like, yeah, it was tight, but we felt like we were in control. And I don't know if that's true in terms of but these athletes are delusional.
I know.
Like,
But
I think
David
he might
said
have
he
felt
didn't
like
play well the whole game until finally at the end, right?
Exactly. That's exactly my
He was
point.
saying a little to do with that.
Well, but to him, that's not the case. To him, it's like, well, we knew we were going to win in the end, and I wasn't playing great. It was only a matter of time before I came through. And I think that's a reality that these guys face. So I'm all for it. I am for all slander. I am for all trash talk. I don't care if it doesn't even make total sense. Give it to me, because I think that our sports is more fun when guys are getting after it in that way.
And you don't often get that with hockey. They're
Yes.
usually pretty humble, soft-spoken. So to get a little back and forth here, the Tkachuk brothers, Hagel, Marchand's sort of the exception to that.
Yeah.
Because he is wired differently than the typical hockey player because he's got that edge to him.
Yeah, he's violent.
Yeah. So that was kind of cool. You get that angle of it, and it should lead to some excitement leading into the Olympics next year. So, by the way, we had that J.J. Redick soundbite right out of the gate this morning, drooling over
we did.
LeBron's performance last night. 40 points in a road win over the Trailblazers.
Yeah, what'd he say again,
Yeah,
guys?
just to refresh your memory, here you go.
I believe I saw the other day he's a billionaire. And he's playing on the second night of a back-to-back at 40 after 22 years with every frickin' record and every accolade. And the kids will say that I'm glazing him.
Okay, and that right there drew quite the reaction from you guys. Basically, it was like smelling salts for you early this morning. So if I may, please allow me to present ESPN's Ray Ferraro talking up U.S. defenseman Jacob Slavin on last night's Four Nations broadcast on ESPN.
That's a tremendous play again by Slavin. I don't mean to glaze him too much, but you watch him all the time and you're like, that's a cornerstone of a championship defense.
So we had two
an epidemic.
glazing references in two different leagues on opposite coasts.
Are
last
we
night.
wrong? Maybe we're wrong, guys. Maybe we think it means something, and these guys think it means something.
I
else.
don't think we're wrong. I think it's just become normalized because you kind of get around it. You know, you get around the reference by saying it in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is going to be interesting because there are some announcers in all sports that like to have fun. So I'm curious the next time Pat McAfee's on a mic or Richard Jefferson on a mic and they say glazing, that will be the moment where I think all the issues we're having, we're like, is this where we are now? That's going to become the national conversation.
What are they doing, Chuck? They doing what, Chuck?
Right, exactly. Inside the NBA, they're going to have a ton.
Okay, do you
I
think
can't
that
believe this
maybe
is
they
part of
meant to
this.
say, like, glossing?
No. I think they
Okay.
meant it exactly
listen,
what they...
these are, yeah, I don't know why they're doing that. There's so many other words.
How old's your son?
5.5.
Yeah, you're not. So my oldest will be 9 shortly.
Yeah.
So what I've noticed is that you get into the elementary schools, into like grade school, and the languages,
Elementary school.
Yeah.
Definitely.
The slang, the stuff that I'm like,
do they know what it means though?
no, well, I'm not saying my 9-year-old's using
Yeah.
glaze, but there are words that I have not been familiar with, and I have to ask them what that means.
Oh,
they
like
to
skibbity or
They
whatever?
like to abbreviate things a lot. That
Can I have an example, please?
Sure. Like sus is one they like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
sure.
So
Yeah.
I think
it's a
just
little sus
these,
that you don't know what it means.
these,
but
these alternate references are becoming more common in today's
Yeah, but
society.
glaze, this is the sexual innuendo
right.
that's what's making
but,
it so
but JJ
crazy.
Redick. So let's JJ Redick. I don't know how old his kids are. I'd imagine they're a little bit older.
I think like
and
middle
Ray
school.
Ferraro probably has.
Right.
I don't know what his family dynamic or situation is, but I'm just thinking of the ages of these guys if they're fathers and the ages of their kids.
Right.
I imagine
and
that's
their kids
probably
are
where it's
setting them up
coming
here
from.
for some really
Yeah.
for failure.
Yeah. So it's interesting.
and profanity.
I think we just needed a. How about it sounds like I'm really praising them. How about praising?
No.
Rhymes with it.
It's not the same effect, Maggie.
Easy fix. CeeLo, thank you very much. Coming up, we've got a lot to do, including more on the Four Nations face-off. We also got some NFL news for you. Don't blink. NNP.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining.
Yep. One minute, 30 seconds remaining.
1 minute remaining. $45 seconds remaining. $30 seconds remaining. $15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Maggie and Perloff on the Infinity Sports Network.
What a night. Boston, Massachusetts, Canada comes through 3-2 in overtime, and it's Connor McDavid who's the hero. Welcome to the show, Maggie Gray. Andrew Perloff still on vacation, so EJ Stewart is sitting in. And listen, best player in the sport, scores the game-winning goal. It's almost storybook, EJ. Now, didn't go our way for the Americans.
Nope.
But I think we're kind of split as U.S. hockey fans here, and we know we're on in Canada. And so congratulations to Canada. This was an emotionally charged game, and you come out victorious. And I think there was a lot to this. There was a lot of layers, geopolitical and otherwise. And I'm sure this was a big relief for everyone in Canada. Hey, we still run this sport, as the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau tweeted last night.
Yeah.
It's still our sport. It's still our country. But from the U.S. point of view, I think there's kind of two different lanes here. Either you feel disappointed because when are we finally going to beat these guys in an international game with stakes? Or you feel like, hey, we've closed the gap here on the Canadians. And yeah, it's still a work in progress, but this was a pick'em game as far as betting is concerned, and is as tight as it could be. 3-2 in overtime. Hey, get them next time. Or, hey, not to say good job, good effort,
Sure.
like in a pandering way or a pejorative way, rather, but to say, hey, this was a good roster that even had some injuries, wasn't even at full strength, and look at how they pushed Canada to the brink.
Yeah, there's an aspect of, you left it all out there on the ice and really there's nothing to hang your head on. I think the problem becomes, and maybe it's unfair, but because this ending was so similar to 2010.
Yeah.
It just makes you wonder, is this kind of like just a glass ceiling that they can't crack? Because we've had 15 years now to, quote unquote, close the gap, and the result was the same. So then to me, it makes me ask the question, did we really close the gap? Or are we just where we were in 2010 when we went to the gold medal game, pushed Canada to the brink? It looked like they were going to win. And of course, Sidney Crosby comes through in the end. What happens this time on
the new Sidney Crosby
on U.S. ice, now at home, you get an opportunity in a gold medal atmosphere. It's not necessarily obviously the Olympics, but it's a gold medal atmosphere. You have a game, you have plenty of opportunities, you don't get it done, and then the best player in the world, who's not on your team, he's on Canada, finishes it. Like, it just feels like it's the same. So then that makes me wonder, in terms of the future of U.S. hockey, is this the best we're ever going to get? Do we have to just be okay with settling for second place? Because it doesn't feel like we've moved the needle in terms of being able to get over the hump over Canada.
So we're going to see what happens with the Olympics next cycle, 2026. That's going to be in Milan in Italy. It's going to be a great backdrop. It's not going to be exactly the same, though, because you can't script it out to know that the USA and Canada are going to meet again.
Right.
Russia's going to have a say. Obviously, Sweden and Finland, who are in this tournament, are going to have a say, and others. But, one thing that I do kind of love about this is really a great roadmap that we've had for some time for sports.
Yes.
And it's just impossible not to see the dichotomy here and how different these all-star breaks went for the NHL and for the NBA. The NBA's couldn't have flopped anymore. The NHL's was a rocket ship. And we all were watching that game last night. I don't know if the ratings came out yet. I'm sure they'll be out soon. I bet it did gangbusters.
Yeah.
So there's a model here. And putting stakes like playing for your country is I think one thing that NBA players have definitely bought into.
Sure.
I mean, it had some ebbs and flows. We all remember Athens got the bronze medal. It was super embarrassing, led to the Redeem Team. But you care when it's about playing for your country and to, forget in-season tournaments and skills competitions and I'll say even slam dunk contests. Like some of those things feel just a little outdated. This has never gotten old. And in fact, we're only ratcheting up more that we like country v. country.
Yeah, like I said earlier in the show, Maggie, to me, this is the future. If you're the NBA, if you're MLB, if you're any professional sport, and to be honest, the NFL will never obviously have a world tournament, but the fact that they're so invested in having these games overseas and potentially having a team overseas, they also know that this is the future. Like, for whatever reason, country pride and bringing in other places beyond the U.S., that brings eyeballs and attention. And for the players, it brings a level of engagement and urgency that we just can't replicate other than a playoff atmosphere or a championship atmosphere.
Yep.
So to me, if I was the NBA, if I was Major League Baseball and they already have the World Baseball Classic, this now needs to be a fixture of your regular seasons. Like, to me, the World Baseball Classic, forget about doing that in March. That needs to be in July. For the NBA, I know we have the Olympics every year, every 4 years, and they have the World Cup, which is not as big, but, people still like the World Cup. You need to be having some version of USA versus World, or maybe putting some countries together in an annual classic that you do every year, because the NBA regular season, a lot of these other regular seasons, are just too long, and there's too many options to watch other things than watch, game 55 of an NBA season or game 91 of an MLB season. There's just too much competition. People can go on Netflix, go on Peacock, go on whatever and watch whatever they want. They can go on the internet and watch anything they want. Everything's at their fingertips. So you're in competition no longer with just the NFL or with another league. You're in competition with
everything.
Bravo. You're in competition with ABC.
Yeah, Netflix, everything.
You're in competition with everything. So you need to have as many big tentpole moments as possible in your regular season. It's not going to be just with having teams playing regular season games. You're going to have to add an international component to your seasons as well.
Yeah, and to be honest, like, the guys have to buy in, or the athletes, it could be women, that they have to buy in too. And that's the difference here. PK Subban said it on ESPN, and he was right. The NHL gives you the platform, but the NHL didn't make this. Hockey didn't make this work. The guys made it work. The players made it work because they invested so much. Same thing with the NBA. It's like, people love making fun of Adam Silver, and he's a terrible commissioner, and I don't agree with everything he's done.
Sure.
But he can't make these guys play hard in an all-star game. He can't. And to be honest with the NBA, these guys are making so much money already. Even the incentive of $500,000, $1 million, whatever you want, they wipe their nose with this money. And I'm not saying they don't care about money. I just don't think money is the carrot that people think it is when it comes to the NBA, because the 12th man is making $5 million.
Yeah, and there's some truth to that, but I think that's why when we talk about the money, I think you need a much more enticing incentive. Like, to me, if you're talking about an all-star game or something like that, before it was, $500,000, $1 million, that's not enough. The NBA, you saw how many ads and promotions were during that all-star game. I mean, it was like it was a corporate event. It didn't even seem like an actual basketball game. So the money is there. They have the money to give each guy that wins an all-star game $5 million. And that's a big deal. Like, $5 million is going to make a guy think whether or not they're going to, block a shot or make a foul than, $1 million or $500,000.
Is that sustainable, though? $5 million for everybody?
They just signed a $75 billion TV deal. They got the money, Maggie. And I think I've always been of the conspiracy theory that this has actually been a little bit of a quiet protest of the all-star games, that the NBA players are seeing these sponsors, even though in theory it's revenue sharing. So
yeah,
theory,
they get 50%. They actually get 48%.
Right, but I think that it's kind of been a silent process being, wait, all these guys are being sold how much, and then why are we playing hard? I think that they see all the money going around, and they're like, how much money are we getting of this? So I think that needs to be a bigger aspect. I think the regular season, you need to have cash incentives. So, like, okay, you're worried about game 12 not mattering. All right, well, say if you win 20 of your first 30 games, that's an extra $5 million.
Yeah.
Like, there are things you can do to talk these guys' language, because we could say the money's too much, but at the end of the day, that's the only language these guys know.
No, I get it, but I think the fans will roll their eyes at that. It's like, seriously? We got to pay you even more money just to get you to care and show up? Like, I think there's a disconnect between you're paying public and the athlete. And I'm not saying that athletes aren't entitled to everything. Get what you're worth. We don't publish the salaries of the billionaire owners. They're obviously making tons of money off of the sport. But I've learned this working in sports for as long as I have. The fans will side with the team over the player. Except for some very rare occasions, they will side with the team over the player. And I think fans will throw up their hands and say, "Oh my gosh, you're making $50 million a year, and now you need an extra $2 million just to give a crap about a slam dunk competition? Like, come on!" And whether that's right or wrong, I'm just telling you, I think that rubs fans the wrong way.
And that may be the conversation leading up to it. But then when Ja Morant goes and does a 360 between the legs and on All-Star Saturday night, that's going to go away really quickly. Like that. That is what, at the end of the day, the fans really care about. I think, yes, in their back of their heads, they're looking at these guys and feeling like they're pampered and they're spoiled and they're making all this money. There's no question there's a part of that. But at the end of the day, that wasn't the reason why people were upset with All-Star Weekend. People were upset about All-Star Weekend because they felt like it was a clown show and the games weren't taken seriously. They want to see the elite athletes be elite. So once you can get to that point, I think a lot of that those issues, I think they kind of go away.
I think actually the bigger thing is that these guys are getting paid so much and they don't play enough. That's actually what it is. It's like the load management, which isn't all just the NBA player saying, I want to sit out. But sometimes that it's like, well, if you're Luka Doncic and you're not going to play a back-to-back because you're not in good enough shape, maybe you aren't worth the $350 million max. Are we going to pay these guys not to play? 855-212-4227. Anyway, hockey. Great night. I know it didn't go the U.S. way, but still a great night. Chris is in Birmingham, Alabama, wants to talk about it. Good morning, Chris.
How you guys doing this morning? I have to agree with EJ here, Maggie. I think you're asking too much of the NBA guys when the workload is kind of strenuous at that. I would say if you're gonna apply this much pressure, you probably need to cut some of the NBA in your regular season games down, and every now and then don't opt into the NBA All-Star team. They come the Olympics, but then there'll be people who are against that. So in that sense, there's no winning in the case, right? So the case being that being said, we shouldn't hold them that much. Should hold them accountable, but not that much accountable when we ourselves don't really invest that much into hockey that much anyway. I say just let the Canadians have their sport and we have our sports because...
Wait a minute, Chris. You can't wave the white flag like that. We got to compete, man. As a loser, that's a loser take.
Wait, hold on, Maggie. Let me tell you something. Do we keep the same energy for the USA men's soccer team? Because we've given them numerous opportunities to actually win. And you know what? They piss away every opportunity.
Yep.
And we... they use the banner of the USA flag as like, you know what, that's the reason you invest in us, because we're a part of us. No. Every time they don't win a FIFA, we take away the USA men's citizenship.
Wait a minute, it's citizenship. It's not American, Chris.
You lose in Brazil, and you know what? You stay in Brazil.
Oh, my gosh. You got to stay in Brazil. Maybe they get a little better if they were in Brazil. No, here's the thing, though, Chris. It's actually kind of similar, I think, with hockey and with soccer. That's a funny call. Thank you for making it. We don't have the best player in the world.
Exactly.
And I actually think we've closed the gap a lot tighter on hockey than we have soccer. Yeah. I mean, soccer, sometimes we don't even qualify for the World Cup.
Yeah.
I know Alex is our big soccer fan here, Manny too. But, I mean, there's no shot that USA is not qualifying for the Olympics in hockey. Like, that's ludicrous. Like, we are, look at 3-2 overtime last night. I'm not going with Chris and saying, let's just give them their sport and we'll focus on something else. Like what, chugging beer?
But I do think Chris makes a point in that at the end of the day, like our American society in terms of how we view the NBA is about ring culture. And that is a part of our culture is we want to count championships. We want to see, all right, the value you have as a player is in how many times your team won championships, which is kind of crazy because it's not an individual sport. This is not tennis where Serena Williams can win 27 or whatever majors, and we say, okay, you were responsible for all 27 of those majors. There's a lot of factors go into it. It really, in many ways, doesn't make much sense, but that is the reality. And in hockey, the culture is different. Yes, they care about the Stanley Cup. Everybody knows it's the best trophy we have, and it's maybe the best playoffs. It's an awesome postseason. But pride in your country means a lot more. Being available means a lot more. Being a tough guy just means a lot more. These are things that aren't part of the American fan experience when it comes to the NBA. We can complain about it all we want, but we're complicit in it because we've co-signed on it. So to some degree, I kind of agree with that part of it for Chris.
Well, here's the thing, though. The irony is that what percentage of the teams are actually in the United States? 85? I can't actually do the math there, but
in NHL?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, like
It's
8?
here.
Yeah, most of them are here.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's mostly being played on our soil. And by the way, we keep talking about this drought that Canada's in terms of winning a Stanley Cup. So I don't want to back down from hockey. As far as like our world standing, I think we've come too far for that, made too much progress.
Yeah.
Soccer is a little interesting. I'm curious when the World Cup comes here, what happens to be a lot of pressure on the Americans. But we have so much further to go to close that gap. We really do. The world, it's their football, it's their number one. We just, we're not there.
Yeah, in some ways with hockey, you could argue maybe we're like, in terms of how much we care, maybe we're second or third or fourth. Either way, we're kind of near the top in terms of the countries, in terms of the investment, the engagement involved with wanting to have great hockey teams, great hockey players. In soccer, I mean, what are we, like 30-something? I mean, like it's just there's
Alex,
so
are
many
we any
other
good,
countries.
by the way? What's our U.S. men's national team situation?
I think the young crop of players coming up now are better than it's ever been.
Heard that before, but okay.
Like, right?
So have I.
Pulisic is like one of the best players.
He's good.
He's like 50 now.
All right, Mr. Mexican soccer fan.
I think
I can feel the rivalry
rankings,
across the glass.
I haven't checked the FIFA rankings, but I assume they're probably like top 15, something like that. But you never see them as like the favorites to win the whole thing. They're only probably like favorites to win the CONCACAF
right.
Champions
Are
League.
we going to get out of the group stage?
I mean, you did last time.
Okay.
Yeah.
They feel they seem to be able to do that most of the time.
Do you remember, though, I'm trying to think, was this 2 World Cups ago? When was the World Cup in South Africa?
2010.
Okay, so I'm going back a little bit.
Yeah.
I feel like half of that team, no one even spoke English on the team. Like, we went real liberal on what's an American citizen, because guys were like German. Jermaine Jones, his parents, I guess. Like, he didn't even speak English. We were just like, come on aboard.
Yeah, Jermaine Jones, you can just tell by his accent. Like, yes, I play for the American national team.
And my thing was like, come on board, Jermaine.
Where are you from, Kenosha? I couldn't locate that accent.
Fabian Johnson, too.
And I mean, if you take a look at the United States roster now, a lot of the players are Mexican-Americans that weren't good enough to make the Mexican national team.
Is that like Alejandro Bedoya and stuff?
Yeah,
guys like that?
Sendejas is one of he plays in the Mexican League, but he represents the U.S. team. By the way, the U.S. men's soccer team ranks 16th in the world right now.
So we are moving up.
Yeah.
But that's kind of, I feel like that's where we've
That's
been.
the highest in CONCACAF.
Yeah, I feel like that's where they've kind of been in that like, if you're in the FIFA, if you're in the World Cup, it basically round of 16 is kind of where they've been getting eliminated, right? Like round of 16. So that's kind of where they've been for a while. Like, and talking about the young players, like I remember when Landon Donovan and Clint Dempsey and Michael Bradley in that generation was supposed to change life. They were supposed to change the landscape of American soccer, and I'm still waiting.
But you know what? The American soccer on the women's side has been a powerhouse for decades on decades on decades now.
Yeah.
It's rather
but the reason why is because every other country had a head start towards in America in the men's side, whereas everyone's like the women's national team started like when everyone else started across the world.
Well, also I think other countries, the investment in women's sports is not as much of a priority. I'm not saying in all, but in some countries, it's just not as much of a priority.
The main reason why it's not sort of the investment that we're not making for the men's. It's more so how we develop them here in this country, because every time you see a young exciting teenager in America, they always go to Europe.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
but they
that's
should.
The problem. Yeah, no, I know, but I'm saying like if they want to try and get it has to come towards like it shouldn't be pay to play, that's the problem. And whereas in other countries in Europe they pay the kids to play.
Oh yeah, we're a little bit different in our developmental leagues.
I watched the Beckham documentary and talking about like Manchester United signing him when he was like in high school. Like he was like a teenager. He looked like a child as he was meeting Sir Alex Ferguson for the first time. That's a real thing, and it's similar to what we talk about with hockey, we talk about with soccer, and it's the same thing that because those sports are secondary here in the U.S., we're just always going to be playing with one hand tied behind our back because we know the next LeBron James is going to pick either football or basketball. The next Lamar Jackson, the next Josh Allen, we know where they're going to likely pick. Imagine if we got those kind of athletes. Imagine if Josh Allen was playing hockey. Like, are you kidding me? Like, that guy at his size flying down the ice, like, LeBron James would hurt somebody on an ice skating rink. Are you like? But the reality is those guys are not playing those sports, so it just makes it tough.
855-212-4227. Been talking about the Four Nations final from last night, and congratulations to Canada. Can I tell you, I saw one of the great things that I will see in sports yesterday. Not hockey, it's something different. Been waiting for this forever, and it's finally here. I'm going to tell you what that is next. It's the Maggie and Perloff Show. EJ's in for Pearl.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. ...45 seconds remaining. 30 seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
This MLS game preview is sponsored by Lowe's. Members get more with My Lowe's rewards. Don't wait. Join for free today. Lowe's, we help you save. Make sure to watch Lionel Messi's Inter Miami take on NYCFC in their first match of the 2025 MLS season tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. It's such a treat that we get to see Messi in this country now. I know, like he's still playing at such an incredibly high level.
Oh, yeah.
Even at his age. But was I right about this? Did I see him playing in like -4 degrees the other day in Kansas City?
Yes.
What is up with Kansas City and playing these sporting events in way too cold of weather? They did this with the Chiefs-Dolphins game, which was like, wind chill, I think, had it like negative something.
Yep.
People were freezing their tushies off.
Yeah, people were getting stuff amputated. They were losing fingers and
Got
toes.
really serious.
Yeah.
We could just move the game 24 hours. Why did they play this MLS game in such a was it MLS, right?
No, it was CONCACAF Champions League.
Of course it was.
Champions
MLS
League.
would never do something like this. They're the best. It's CONCACAF, guys. That's where I need to write a strongly worded letter to.
Yeah, you need to write a letter to the entire continent.
Yeah. You got an address for me?
Yeah, it's 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Yes.
Yeah, it's Maggie. Take a chillpill.com.org.
It was weird though. I do agree with that point. Like I don't know why that game couldn't just.
Why did they play it at night?
It was played because
A little in the day, maybe you could have had a thought out a little
who's
bit.
Who's going to show up at 3:00 in the afternoon on a Wednesday in Kansas City to watch?
They're
Champions
crazy
League?
soccer fans. They would totally show up.
The aesthetic went crazy though. The all black. It was so nice to see it. Honestly.
Yeah, because you don't have to sit there.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect from home.
CONCACAF Champions League. You just can't have these things rescheduled.
All right. Well, listen, we're glad to be able to watch Messi take
Match
on
day one.
Inter Miami, NYCFC, mano a mano.
Chase Stadium in Fort Lauderdale.
Love it. Tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time.
Football.
Set your DVRs, guys. Thomas is in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and wants to talk about the hockey game from last night. Canada wins 3-2 in overtime in the Four Nations face-off. Hey, Tom.
Good morning, Maggie. No Perloff this morning, right, though?
Still on a zip line in Costa Rica.
You got EJ.
He's ziplining? EJ, good morning to you, by the way, brother, man.
Hey, what's happening?
Thomas from La Crosse, Wisconsin is indeed here. I want to say really quickly, ziplining is so fun for anybody in the national audience who's never done it. Please go and do it. I've done it at least 3 times. It's the best adrenaline rush you're ever going to get. Now on to sports. I just wanted to get that out there, Maggie. Great.
Yeah.
That's okay.
No, we needed that.
Yeah, and hey, happy Friday, everybody, too. Quick motivation. I hope you guys end your week off strong. Maggie, you enjoyed the heck out of this show and whatever you got the rest of the day at the station, at the studio with work. But, guys, let's finish off the week strong. And with that, the hockey.
Yeah.
You know what I love about hockey? Maggie Gray and EJ, good to hear from you always, buddy. Filling in the good old Andrew Perloff seat. You know what I love about hockey? I love hockey for the fights. And boy, did we get one during the Four Nations.
Yeah.
I saw the highlight on the YouTube. Bro literally dropped the puck and boom, 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 boom. We started fighting right away, and I'm like.
Wait, what was that? What did it sound like?
I made a little.
What are you, motorboating this guy? What are you doing, dude? Are you dropping the puck or something else?
I was going to say Tasmanian devil. Sure, we'll go with motorboating.
No, that was my sound effect of people fighting. But you know what I did like? I'm going to give it up here. We're going to give it up for give it up for the hockey fights.
Yeah.
Give it up for the hockey fights. There you go. Some claps.
Okay.
On this platform I'm using, I found a sound effects website. So claps up for that. You know what I did like, though?
The hockey fights?
The hockey fights.
Yeah.
But I also like the intensity, man.
Yeah.
There were a lot of hip checks, and I think the crowd was really... Here's what the crowd, speaking of crowd, don't do the anthem. For the love can we just respect other nationalities' anthems, Maggie Gray and EJ Stewart?
Well,
like, for the love
Thomas, I think it got more complicated than that. And you know what? A+ call. Thank you. Love the hockey fights.
I'll have whatever he's having.
I know.
He's fired up.
I love it. And he wants, to wish everybody a great weekend.
Yeah.
Like, we're all about that around
How about the
here.
production? You got a little sound effect machine
Sound
too?
effect machine. I can't
Well,
even
that
do
was the sound machine. That was his
was
mouth. Yeah, sound effect machine was the laugh. Was the clapping? Which I was like, okay.
Maggie good with the motorboat, the glazing though, not so much.
Listen,
People a lot is gonna have a heart attack when they listen to this podcast. By the way,
not one curse word has ever been uttered on this show that made it to air.
Wow.
We maybe spelled a couple, but we've never. No, listen. What did you guys think that was? It was like a Donald Duck. Like
I really thought Tasmanian Devil. That's why when he first said, it, I was like, oh, what are you, Taz? And then you said that, I was like, oh well, that's the other thing, I guess.
Sounded like dudes fighting to me.
I just have this thing where I'm just saying what everybody's thinking. Some people can't handle that. Jeff is in Tucson.
Hey,
Jeff,
now.
you liked the hockey last night.
Yeah, but how do I follow up behind that guy?
Good luck to you.
Yeah, no kidding. One of the things that I wanted to comment on is the switchy, because, I'm a Cavalier fan, too.
Yeah.
So they were on at the same time. So I stole my wife's tablet and put the Cavalier game on the tablet, and TV, I got the hockey game on. And my wife sat there and watched the hockey game with me, which she's never done. And she even got into the whole hoopla of it being like a world game.
Yeah.
And and I told her, I said, it's like even better than the Stanley Cup. And, I had to explain all that.
I mean, that's what some of the players were saying,
Yeah.
let alone us as fans. The players were saying this is more meaningful than playing in the Stanley Cup, which is maybe a little prisoner of the moment, but crazy thing to admit.
Maggie, could we have expected anything greater than the last game to go into overtime?
I know.
I mean, we were treated as fans of hockey, as just sports fans.
I know.
Overall, just a great hockey. And boy, did the NHL get it right, and the NBA, look what they're doing. They got egg all over their face.
I know, Jeff, we were asking this week, and thanks for the call, Drive Safe, if the NHL embarrassed the NBA this week of how well their gimmick worked versus the NBA's just didn't. I call it a gimmick. I don't mean to sound like I'm knocking it, but this is what it was. I thought it was funny last night with the 4 Nations. I wasn't sure what they were going to give out because, technically, it's just an exhibition.
Yeah. Right.
A trophy, medals that
yep.
they put around their necks.
Yeah. Had an Olympic feel to it.
Totally.
Kind of both. The Olympic and then the trophy. It's not the Stanley Cup, but that sort of thing.
And some hats that I guess people weren't that crazy about. I thought the hats were fine.
Yeah.
They kind of look like a free hat you'd get with like a case of beer. But I'll still take one.
I'll be honest. I'll be real. I feel like most championship hats look like that. I've never seen now, joke, oh, your team's EJ never win championships.
You're setting yourself up for that one, EJ.
I know. And so I'll get it out now. But I will say, I feel like I've never seen a championship hat that I would want. Like the Liberty did just win, and I looked at the championship hats, and I'm like, I'll get a shirt.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Really quickly, and CeeLo, I know you got updates here, but I just want to point out something that I was so thrilled to see yesterday. And I had not seen it in the minor leagues, but finally, Major League Baseball, they're calling it the robot umps. Now, that's a little, I think, deceiving of what actually happened. But finally, in the major leagues, they started testing what is essentially the Hawkeye from tennis tournaments.
It's like ABS they're calling it, right?
They call it ABS. I don't know what that stands for.
Automated balls and strikes.
Oh, automated ball strike. That makes sense.
Sorry, man.
Okay.
That's okay, CeeLo.
I love it. To call it robot umps is not exactly there yet because it's not every ball and strike. What happens is either the batter, the pitcher, or the catcher can pat the top of their head to signal they want to challenge the ball or the strike, and they immediately go to the Hawkeye, which is the slow motion on a Jumbotron of the ball coming, and you see in tennis whether it hits the line or not, and it's really dramatic and fun. In this case, it was whether or not it was in the strike zone. And so it was Poteet, right, the guy from the Yankees, against Max Muncy was the first one, and the pitcher was right. It was a strike. It got called a ball. It goes from 1-1 to 0-2, and then he struck him out on the next pitch. I love this. So it looks like it's going to be 2 challenges per game. That should increase because the flow was quick. I'm just all about this.
How about the drama and the intrigue of a World Series clincher ending on a overturned ball strike challenge.
Well, and the other part is if you're a manager, are you empowering all of your guys to call for the challenge?
Interesting.
Because if you only get 2 per game, then you can't blow them both like in the first inning. And guys probably always think that they're getting hosed on calls.
Right. And in the NBA, they'll tell the coach, they'll make the sign, but it's ultimately the coach that has to put the challenge through, right?
Yeah, and also most of the time they're wrong.
Yeah. You got to challenge that.
Check it. Luka,
No.
check it. It's like, dude,
They do that little twirling motion like a home run.
Yeah, exactly.
And there are definitely moments in NBA
And
games.
the tennis players miss all the time too.
Sure.
They ask
I
for
feel like
challenges.
they get a lot more though, right?
Well, also tennis, it's like every millimeter.
Yeah.
You know.
But I'm saying the amount of challenges they're allowed per match. I feel
It's
like it
more than
happens
2.
much more regularly.
Yeah, I think it's 5.
Than,
I got to double check.
Yeah, and in the NBA, you'll definitely see moments where I think the coach knows he's going to lose it, but for the sake of backing up his star,
Yeah.
he just challenges
No, they
it.
took
just to
away
hell with it.
challenges because it was taking too long. That's the thing about the NBA. It takes so long. This Hawkeye thing, though, doesn't take. It takes but a second. And
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
I mean, you can go on social media now and watch the clip, and it's like 20 seconds long. Like it's like super quick. It's not like
it's not intrusive into the
it's not
sport.
this long thing where it's going to take forever.
Or
no,
college
this is awesome.
basketball, heaven forbid. At the end of these games, sometimes it's like, oh my god.
I think you made a good point though about who gets the right to do this thing, because I don't know if the 21-year-old coming up from AA, like he's going to be allowed to really just be pulling this. I wonder if you only really say, hey, Aaron Judge, all right, you think there's a ball and a strike issue, you go up there. Maybe not so much for Jason Dominguez. I think that's real. I really do. I don't think you're going to allow, especially these young guys who maybe don't know the strike zone that well, also to be saying what's balls and what strikes.
Other baseball news that's of interest to a couple people in this room. CeeLo, you got that for us?
Yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting, we'll call it 24 hours or so for the Yankees. And they first had the 2-year contract extension for manager Aaron Boone. And then this morning put out an announcement that they are finally amending their, I'm going to call it, antiquated facial hair policy to allow for, quote, well-groomed beards, to the point where they're actually going to hold a press conference at 11 Eastern with Hal Steinbrenner and Brian Cashman.
Are you serious?
Yes,
Yeah.
I am.
I got the press release.
Did you read the full statement?
Manny read it to us. I just
Okay.
got the email. I'm on the Yankees PR list, so I just got the email.
Excuse us.
It was, I mean, it
I'm
really
fancy.
went into detail with this statement on all the background work they did on this across multiple years, which was interesting to me. So
You know what bothers me about this? While this was the right decision, and I'm happy for the Yankees, which is rare, have ranking players, Yankee fans who felt like this was ridiculous. I don't like it, though, when you spend also those same years where apparently you were doing all this background to see whether or not this is what you could do. We've had Hal Steinbrenner on record being like, this is the right thing. We know this is the way to go. Players don't complain about it. In fact, it sounds like it was the exact opposite, that there was perhaps this issue that they had to look into and see if it had to change. Like, I don't like being gaslit.
Well,
Like, everyone
EJ
knew this
also-
was ridiculous, and you're telling me it's not. And then after you make the decision, say, yeah, actually, you know what? We had to talk to a lot of people to see if this was the right thing to do.
Yeah, I think it's called a lie.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to call anyone a liar. I'm just saying it sounds like a lie that you were so staunchly in the camp of we got to keep this stupid policy, and now all of a sudden it's gone. I think they are trying to just say like, no, we thought it through, like to cover themselves that they're not just making a willy-nilly decision.
Oh, so you don't think there was this back and forth for a year or two?
Maybe we got a couple emails, but I don't think it was a committee,
Okay.
that's been diving deep into this.
well, that's what was interesting
Okay.
about the wording to me is that they say in recent weeks, Hal Steinbrenner spoke to a large number of current former players, but then the other part was this was part of an ongoing internal dialogue that had been going on for several years.
I feel bad because I think Andrew McCutchen had to cut his braids just to go to the Yankees and like have no impact.
They had guys show up. The Devin Williams shaved his beard already. Max Fried is there with the mustache. Like, so.
Yeah, this is not that thought through.
But like, yeah, if you were going to make the change a couple days ago, you might have saved Devin Williams or some of your other guys the beards that they had come to know and love.
Yeah, somewhere Johnny Damon, a single tear just rolls down his cheek.
We probably could have kept Gleyber Torres now as well.
Oh, was he a facial hair guy?
Oh, you should check him out with the Tigers. He's letting that
So
thing
like David
grow.
Letterman?
Oh yeah. Well, not like David Letterman, but he's looking handsome.
I think it went beyond that with Gleyber, but
Oh, you think so?
I did see those.
But hustle to first base. It was a butcher at second. Yeah, maybe.
A lot of
that
these guys, once they get cut loose, they can't wait to grow the facial hair back. Gary Sanchez was like
Yeah,
that.
Joey Gallo. They cut his beard. All of a sudden, he couldn't hit anymore.
Who's the best?
And then couldn't ever hit again.
Who on the Yankee roster who will grow a beard out will look the best, you think? Now that we have,
Well,
now
if
that
Devin Williams can grow his back.
Well, that's the thing. We don't know who can grow their beards because we haven't seen them. We don't see these guys in the offseason. Who can grow a beard?
if he can get on the field,
Maggie
I feel
didn't
like
know that Glaber Torres can grow a beard.
No, I didn't.
no, none of us did.
He was a big off-season facial hair guy, and then he'd have to get rid of it when they got to spring
This is a
training.
weird one to kind of give, like, as Joe Benengo says, cadoos. It's kind of weird to give cadoos to a team for doing something that feels like the relevance of this died somewhere in the 50s. Like, I don't even.
Well,
it wasn't around in the 50s.
Steinbrenner put it in play when
Yeah,
he
in the
bought the
80s.
team in the 70s. Yeah.
By the way, Manny was not like overselling Glaber Torres.
Oh, yeah.
Blow up. He looks like a model.
And he looks much happier.
Bro is good looking. He's always been good looking. He looks great with that beard. And now that he's a Detroit Tiger, he can let that thing grow as long as he wants.
I would say beard for men is like makeup for women.
Go ahead.
Why do you think I wear a beard?
Same. Covers my face fat.
Yeah, exactly.
A little bit. Not enough, but
This
to
is
some
the,
extent.
This is the secret.
Yeah.
No, we know. It's just the Yankees who couldn't get on board. No, women know. We know guys look better with beards, depending. But no, for some reason the Yankees decided to do this. It's
now.
It's fishy.
Yeah.
It's very fishy. I don't think they've been thinking about this for a long time. I think Hal Steinbrenner's probably got young kids, and they probably maybe did
A
something.
la Brick Johnson of the Jets.
Yeah, I think it's like a Brick Johnson thing.
Garrett Cole was a beard guy in prior
Right,
stops.
yeah.
I've never seen Aaron Judge with facial hair. I'm curious if he'll roll out there with any facial hair.
Stanton is a soul patch guy.
Stan can
Does he
go-
go full
yeah.
beard now?
I think he's going to grow a beard and he's going to look awesome.
Well, he's
That's
kind of
my
like
guy.
a model.
Stanton?
Yeah.
Well, he's got to take care of the double tennis elbow first.
Yeah,
Yeah.
please, bro.
Yeah, he's got to
He didn't get that from actually playing tennis, right?
No.
Because
that
also
from
that
the-
wouldn't explain both elbows. You don't generally like switch hands.
He got it from growing out his beard.
Yeah, right.
Preparing for the offseason.
So bad that he hasn't been swinging a bat for the last 4 to 5 weeks.
Who
No, this
cares?
is
He's
great.
good in the
mean,
playoffs. Seal, you want to hang out for a sec?
Sure.
Okay, got to take a quick break. See you guys. Let's keep talking about this hockey game last night, which was epic, and we'll talk about the future tentacles of what did it mean last night to have so many people invested in the four-nation face-off. Don't move.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. $45 seconds remaining. $30 seconds remaining. $15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Perloff on vacation, EJ sliding in, and Chris Lopresti here. We kind of shortchanged you on some headlines, and let's hear some hockey highlights, CeeLo.
Yeah, it's all about the hockey this morning, and it did feel a little like 2010 in the Vancouver Winter Olympics. USA Canada went to overtime last night with pro hockey glory on the line, and the Canadians would prevail yet again.
Off the drop, McDavid went forward, and nearly got a shot on. McCarr sends it around. Marner waiting. Connor McDavid scores! Connor McDavid for Canada!
Chris Cuthbert, Final Call Sportsnet in Canada, as Connor McDavid gets the glory this time around, set up by Mitch Marner and Cale Makar at 8:18 of overtime. But prior to that game winner, Jordan Binnington, exceptional in goal for Canada, especially during a couple of key sequences, robbed Austin Matthews multiple times to keep his team alive.
Just taking it all in now, kind of calmed down a little bit, but I mean, what a moment. And so much led to this special moment for all of us. So we're really just now enjoying it.
Binnington on NHL Network Radio, and there's a guy for the Blues in 2019, won a Game 7 of the Cup Final on that Boston ice against the Bruins. So certainly familiar with coming up big in a big spot in that building. As for McDavid, wasn't exactly a standout performance for him by his standards until he buried that game winner, and he acknowledged it afterwards.
I was not very good all night. All was going through my mind is just keep going. I struggled all night, but these guys played great, and we just found a way.
McDavid with Emily Kaplan on ESPN. Brady Tkachuk, certainly a standout for the U.S. team, but heartbreak for them. They had a 2-1 lead in the second period, and they carried play in the third period, and we talked about the chances in overtime. Here was Brady Tkachuk afterwards.
This sucks. I thought this team deserved more. We had chances there to finish it off. This has been my favorite hockey memories, just playing for this team.
Brother Matt, only 6:47 of ice time. He was hampered by that, we'll call it lower body injury, and tried to give it a go, but you could see he was just uncomfortable on the bench.
It was go ahead, Minnie.
CeeLo, how come they don't disclose what those injuries are? How come it's not a foot injury? How come it's not a thigh injury or something? How come it's a
deep vein thrombosis?
Sure.
Within the last, I'm going to say maybe like 10, 15 years, maybe coming out of one of the lockouts, that became a thing. I forget who started it. Upper body, lower body, where I guess the concern would be, since it's such a physical game, you'll have guys pinpointing
Targeting.
the location, targeting. Yeah, exactly.
Which is funny because they could do that in the NFL too.
Yeah.
College, they're a little more cagey. Probably has to do it, I think, with their union. What's interesting, so Brady Tkachuk was one of those guys who actually had a moment. So when Jordan Binnington was really standing on his head in that overtime, it was a stop on Austin Matthews, then the stop on Brady Tkachuk, I think, out of the face-off, which was just like amazing. And then then it was Brady Tkachuk, then it was off the face-off. It was Austin Matthews.
Yeah.
Again, I mean,
the glove save.
Binnington was he was all over the place.
I couldn't quite tell from the angles they had the Brady Tkachuk chance, which was the second chance in that sequence, essentially off of a rebound.
Yeah.
It was sort of an awkward angle, like Binnington got it with the glove. I was curious if that puck definitely would have went in or if it would have went through the crease. I mean, great save either way.
Yeah.
But it was hard to tell if that actually was like targeted for going in.
The one on the off the face-off was bananas.
That was the one.
And he was like very smooth and sort of casual about it even. He was just like, I'm all over this.
And it's funny because he was taking some heat from Canadians who didn't feel like he was playing well, and he wasn't playing all that well. And then he puts on that performance last night. He was special.
And Ray Ferraro mentioned it multiple times throughout. His reputation, his MO is that, he'll let in a soft one here or there, but he'll come up with the big stops and the big moments. And that's exactly what you saw last night. So we've had some fun with the rivalry and some of the edginess that played out over the last few days, both on and off the ice, but ran a little deeper than that for Paul Bissonnette, who you, of course, see and hear on TNT's coverage of the NHL. He's got the Spit and Chicklets podcast. Mm-hmm. So this was in our system. Not sure if it's just a video he posted to social media, but his immediate raw reaction as a Canadian to the McDavid game winner.
Jesus! McJesus! He has risen! I told you guys, this is our game. This is our sport. Rights, baby. We're bringing it home. We did it in your barn, too. We're still the greatest hockey nation in the world. Don't you forget it.
Now that he's got all that off his chest, we got a 14-game slate, regular season NHL tomorrow. So let's get back to business. And I'm sure he'll be much calmer next time he appears on TNT's coverage of the league.
I wonder, did Justin Trudeau, did he actually listen to that? Because his tweet is kind of similar, where he said, "You can't take our country and you can't take our game." A little like the political version.
Who came first
of that?
Yeah. So intense, to say the least.
Yeah, maybe he's the Trudeau translator.
Yeah.
Remember I said earlier we need an Obama translator for LeBron?
Luther, the Obama translator from Key and Peele.
Oh, man.
I love when you call it a barn. Calling an arena a barn.
They like the barn.
Yeah.
Canadians like that reference.
Yeah.
Good one.
I know that one. I know that one better than banged on.
Yeah. Let's see if CeeLo knows this.
Yeah, Bogus was bringing me up to speed on this.
Have you ever? So Manny tweeted, not to throw you under the bus, Manny, but the tweet was a little deceiving.
The bus. I saw the tweet yesterday. I was working down the hall locally here, and I was like, "What's going on over there with this pole?"
People often ask, "What's going on down here?" Motorboating. Anyway, what we asked was, have you ever heard, Pat Boyle was in your seat yesterday, and he said that Austin Reeves got banged out of the game.
Yeah.
Right. And nobody here had heard of that. I did.
Yes.
And then we went on to say, which means he got ejected from the game.
Yeah.
Then apparently no one around here had ever heard the term that a game, like a baseball game, gets banged for rain.
Heard both. I would have been on Team Pat Boyle for that one.
Totally.
Yeah.
You guys were acting like, we were saying something untoward.
I just have never heard this.
I called baseball games, like Pat said yesterday. I'm very, very familiar with those terms. I just like to stir the pot.
Especially with and then for basketball, like, to me, you get banged on, it means you got dunked on. Like, that's, at least as a basketball player, that's what we would say. We'd say, "Oh, you got banged on."
How did he phrase it? He got banged on. See, I would have said he got banged out of the game.
I thought he said banged out.
The banged on part, I would have been like, that doesn't quite sound right. Like
banged on.
I think he just said banged. I don't think he said banged out. I think he said got banged from the game.
Banged from the game. See that? The banged on part wouldn't have made sense for the ejection. Banged from the game or banged out of the game, I would have been like, yep, I gotcha.
If someone got banged on, for some reason, what the visual is in my head is like Charles Barkley's big butt, like moving somebody out of the way under the rim and grabbing a rebound and going up and dunking.
There you go. That works.
I don't know why.
That works.
But yeah, if a game gets banged, it gets postponed.
Postponed, right. I get us a rain out.
I've learned something from doing this show this week. I'm going to keep that now.
You can have it.
Yeah.
We're learning something new every day. I learned today I can eat a, maple jam hot dog at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
So you never know.
You're stronger than you think, CeeLo.
Was it good, CeeLo?
It was. And, it picked me up because you guys referenced when I first walked in here in the first hour that I was down about last night's U.S.-Canada result. And I was dragging a little down in the dumps. But
Nothing makes an American happier than a hot dog.
I know.
With maple syrup on it.
This is as American as it gets.
Little food from the Red Bulls to get you going on a Friday morning.
Yeah,
Who knew?
The only more American thing was if you actually you walked into a hot dog eating contest and you actually had to eat like 50 in a row.
No.
That would be as American as possible.
That would have ended poorly in here for me.
Have a little coffee with your maple jam hot dog. And we appreciate the people from the New York Red Bulls for bringing that out to us. Thank you, Manny and Alex. Thank you, CeeLo, Andrew Kaplan, EJ, fantastic all week, filling in for Perloff.
Thank you.
Perloff will be back from his vacation on Monday. Will we make him pay off his bet of driving to San Antonio to apologize to Victor Wembanyama? Stay tuned. Have a great week.
You're in a 5-minute break.